My parents said I was just a backup son. I was walking to the kitchen and heard them say they only keep me around for my money. So I cut them off, blocked everyone, and built a life without them. Now I own the land. They tried to steal, and my brother's unemployed. Hey Reddit, I don't usually post on here. I just scroll, read drama, and mind my business. But things at home went so sideways, I honestly didn't know where else to drop this. You ever just sit back and realize your whole family treated you like a backup plan they never even wanted? Yeah, that's basically how I grew up. I am 31 male, the older brother, but somehow my younger brother Aaron has always been the golden child. I mean, the kid could literally set the living room on fire and my parents would ask me why I left the matches out. It's been like that since we were kids. They used to call Aaron, 28 male, a little genius, just because he could plug in the DVD player on his own. Meanwhile, I was the one cooking boxed mac and cheese by age 9 while our parents were out doing God knows what. But none of that mattered to them. Aaron had potential. I was just there. Our mom, Nancy, is that kind of woman who talks like everything's fine but drips venom in every sentence. She'd say things like, Aaron just needs more space to grow, and you're older, you should understand better. Our dad, Stan, wasn't any better. He treated Aaron like the second coming of Steve Jobs and looked at me like I was a broken tire jack. It got worse as we got older. When I turned 17, I got a job at a local repair shop, changing oil, replacing brakes, basic stuff. I was just trying to stack some money, maybe help out a little. And what did they do? Start charging me $400 a month in rent. That's right, 17, still in high school, paying rent to live in a house I grew up in. Fast forward a year, Aaron turns 16 and crashes his car. Guess who pays to fix it? Not him, not our parents, me. And they acted like it was normal. Like, well, you have a job, and Aaron's still trying to find himself. Find himself? Bro was literally skipping class to vape behind the school and cheat off his girlfriend's homework. And they wonder why I moved out as soon as I legally could. But here's the thing. No matter how bad it got, I still helped them. When Dad lost his job for the third time, which wasn't even a surprise at that point, I helped cover their electric bills. I sent money monthly when their mortgage started falling behind. Even bought Aaron a used laptop when he said he needed it for a remote internship that turned out to be some MLM crypto thing. I didn't do it because they deserved it. I did it for my mom, mostly. I kept thinking she'd change, that if I helped enough, they'd finally see I was worth something. But people like that don't change. They just see you as a faucet, and the second it stops dripping, they start screaming. My wife, Sarah, kept telling me it wasn't right. She's a third-grade teacher, sweetest person I know. Tough when she needs to be, but always fair. Every time we'd visit my parents, my mom would hit her with one of those fake smile lines like, "So are you still just teaching?" Or, "Must be nice to have summers off." That's real condescending crap, but always said in that polite voice that makes it hard to call out without sounding crazy. Sarah never complained, though. She just took it. For me. Then there's Max, our dog. A rescue. Big ol' mutt with one floppy ear and a crooked tail. He's basically my second kid. Been with us since before our daughter was born. That dog sat with me during late-night shifts, road trips, everything. And my parents hated him. They'd always say things like, "You care more about that animal than your own blood." Funny how the dog never asked me for rent money, or called my wife useless. Now here's where things went from just crappy family dynamics to straight betrayal. Last year, during some random family dinner, I went to the kitchen to grab water for Sarah and me. My daughter was in the living room with Max, watching cartoons. I wasn't even trying to eavesdrop or anything, but I stopped in the hallway when I heard my name. Dad was saying, "He acts like he's some big man because he sends us a couple $100. Then Mom added, "It's disgusting. He's a failure and he doesn't even see it. If Aaron had that kind of money, he'd use it properly." Then Aaron, of course, had to throw in his 2 cents. Honestly, if he wasn't paying the bills, I wouldn't even bother talking to him. I stood there, staring at the hallway tiles like they were about to crack. I didn't move. I didn't say anything. I just listened. They went on for a while, too, about how they were just using me to stay afloat and he'll always be the backup, word for word, like I wasn't their son, like I was just an ATM they could insult when the screen turned off. I walked back in, set the water down, and told Sarah we were leaving. She knew something was up. I didn't say anything until we got in the car and Max was loaded up with our kid in the back seat. Then I told her everything. She didn't say, "I told you so." She just said, "Good. Now let's be done with them." And I was. No more money. No more calls. I blocked every one of them. Even Aaron. Changed my number. Told my job I wasn't available to do repairs on weekends anymore so I could spend time with my actual family, the ones who mattered. Max got extra treats that night, by the way. Thing is, I thought cutting them off would make me feel guilty, but it didn't. It felt like standing up straight for the first time in years, like finally letting someone else carry their own dead weight. But they didn't take it well, and they didn't go quietly either. So after I cut them off, I figured that'd be the end of it. Like, all right, they'll be mad, talk trash for a while, then eventually move on. Wrong. Cutting off their free ride just lit a fuse I didn't even know existed. They didn't come back with apologies. They came back swinging. I started getting weird texts from numbers I didn't know. Stuff like, your mother's crying herself to sleep, and you abandoned your family for a dog. I blocked them one by one. Then came the Facebook messages from extended family. Aunt Lisa, Uncle Brian, even some cousin I hadn't talked to since we were 10. All saying stuff like, you need to make things right, or, your dad always tried his best, you're being selfish. All parroting the same thing like they were reading from a group script. I found out later that my mom had been calling everyone in the family, telling them I lost it, and was having some kind of mental breakdown. She left out the part where they openly admitted to using me for years. But the biggest shift came when my grandpa's name started getting tossed around. Grandpa Joe, my mom's dad, wasn't rich, but he owned some land. Big open property outside of town, probably worth low six figures if sold. When I was a kid, he used to take me fishing there. He taught me how to change oil in his truck, how to patch drywall, even how to sharpen a mower blade. He was old school and quiet, but always respected people who worked hard and didn't complain. When I stopped talking to my parents, I still called Grandpa every couple weeks, just checking in, asking if he needed anything. He always said the same thing. I'm proud of you, kid. He knew how my parents were. He'd seen it for years. He just never stepped in because, in his words, I wanted to see if they'd wake up on their own. Spoiler, they didn't. Anyway, one day he mentioned he was putting together a will. Nothing dramatic, just said he wanted to make sure everything went where it was supposed to. I didn't think much of it, honestly. I wasn't expecting anything. I figured he'd split it all evenly between his kids and grandkids, or maybe just sell the land and downsize. But a month later, things got weird. Aaron, my lovely brother who never lifted a finger unless it was for himself, started showing up at Grandpa's place, like regularly, bringing him groceries, fixing stuff around the house. I knew something was off immediately. Aaron doesn't fix anything. The guy once called me because he didn't know how to restart the Wi-Fi router, but now he was playing Handyman of the Year. Turns out Aaron found out about the will. My parents must have heard something and sent him in like a scout. Butter him up, get in his good graces, and maybe manipulate the will in their favor. That's when I started watching things a little closer. Aaron's always been a snake, but for some reason, people never seem to catch on. At work, he had a desk job at some logistics company. Nothing fancy. His title sounded more impressive than it actually was. Regional Compliance Specialist or something like that. But really, all he did was fill out spreadsheets and send reports. The thing is, he'd been doing shady stuff there for years without getting caught. He'd copy other people's work, fudge numbers to hit his KPIs, even submitted a few expense reports for client lunches that were just him and his girlfriend ordering takeout. I only knew all this because his dumbass used to brag about it in the group chat we had years ago. He'd say stuff like, "Bro, my manager is so dumb. I literally submitted the same report from last month, just changed the dates." And no one questioned it because he wore dress shirts and talked fast in meetings. He lived on shortcuts, always did, and somehow it always worked out for him. He'd fail upwards, talk his way out of issues, charm the higher-ups just enough to avoid real accountability. Meanwhile, if I showed up 5 minutes late for a delivery, my pay got docked. That was the difference. He had a family making excuses for him and bosses who never looked too close. I had bills and reality. Anyway, back to Grandpa. One day, I get a call from him. He's confused, quiet, says he got a call from someone claiming to be a health representative asking about his memory. Asked if he's been forgetting things, if he's been misplacing items, if he feels overwhelmed managing property. I told him that sounded shady and asked for the number. Turns out, it wasn't some random checkup. It was arranged. A week later, I found out my parents tried to claim that Grandpa was mentally declining, that he wasn't fit to handle his own estate. They were working on submitting documents, fake documents, to the court, suggesting he had early signs of Alzheimer's. They had a bogus doctor's note, too. Probably paid someone or forged the damn thing. That's when something in me flipped. I wasn't just going to walk away anymore. I wasn't just going to block a few numbers and call it done. They wanted to play dirty? Cool. I know things too. I had messages, I had screenshots, I had receipts. First, I helped Grandpa contact a lawyer. We locked his estate down properly, got real evaluations done, and made sure any court filings on his behalf would trigger an alert. He even recorded a video saying he was fully competent and understood exactly what his will said. That alone nuked any chance they had. But I wasn't done. Aaron's job? Yeah. I dug up every single thing he ever bragged about. Fake expense reports, copy-pasted audits, even one time where he left sensitive files open on a public terminal at a FedEx. I gathered it all. Sent it in an anonymous package to his HR department with a little note. Might want to audit your golden boy. 2 weeks later, he was fired. No references, no severance, no dignity. My parents were furious. They tried calling again, this time screaming voicemails instead of guilt-tripping ones. I saved them all. You never know. The best part? Grandpa updated the will, left everything to me and his great-granddaughter. Aaron's name was scratched out completely. Not even a penny. That's when the begging started. So Aaron got fired. Not laid off, not downsized, fired. Like full-on escorted out of the building kind of fired. No handshake, no, we'll be in touch, no severance package. Just a walk of shame out the lobby and a security guy handing him a sad little cardboard box with his coffee mug and desk junk in it. Took 2 days before my mom called me. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't ask how my daughter was doing. She went straight into rage mode. "This is your fault," she hissed into the phone. "You've ruined your brother's future." I hung up. Then she started texting Sarah. That didn't go the way she planned either. Sarah doesn't play polite. She's dealt with bratty third graders for 10 years and knows how to handle manipulators like a pro. She responded once, just one line. "Stop contacting me. We protect our peace now." Blocked. But the real storm didn't start until a week later, when my parents showed up at Grandpa's lawyer's office during a routine check-in. They tried to present the forged medical documents again. Yeah, even after everything. Claimed Grandpa had no idea what he was doing, said his will had been influenced by outsiders, read me, and that he was not of sound mind. Only this time, they walked straight into a legal buzzsaw. Grandpa had already filed a preventative notice with the county clerk's office. Basically, it was a "don't touch my stuff unless I'm legally ruled incompetent" kind of thing. He also had that recorded video we made earlier, where he literally held up a newspaper, said the date out loud, and explained every line of his will calmly and clearly, with the lawyer sitting next to him. Once the judge saw the video and compared it with the garbage report my parents submitted, it was game over. Forgery's a serious thing, especially when it involves manipulating someone's estate. Turns out my uncle, Mom's younger brother, had a friend in the court system. He tipped us off that there might be actual charges coming down. Fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to defraud an estate, all of it. And the best part? They did it all to themselves. I didn't even have to push. I just made sure the truth was waiting for them at every corner. Aaron was spiraling hard. Without his job, his fancy apartment was too expensive, so he moved back in with our parents. From what I heard, he spends most of his time gaming and rage tweeting about how family betrayed him. Classic victim mindset. Always someone else's fault. My parents? They were quietly drowning. The money I used to send? Gone. Their mortgage was behind by 3 months. Car payments late, utilities bouncing. They even got their internet shut off, which honestly made me laugh a little too hard. Aunt Lisa sent me a voice note saying Mom had cried for 2 hours the night the internet cut out, blaming me for ruining the family's reputation. Like I was the one who faked medical reports and tried to rob my dying grandfather. They still didn't get it. Meanwhile, Sarah and I were doing all right. Not rich, not flashy, but solid. Stable. I had picked up a few extra contracts, started saving to buy a second-hand truck so I could scale up. Sarah was tutoring after school for a bit of side cash, and our daughter had just gotten Student of the Month. Max was healthy. I was sleeping better. The house felt peaceful. And for the first time in years, I actually felt proud of my life. Then the call came. It was late. I was watching some dumb show, half asleep on the couch, when the phone rang. It was my mom. I stared at it for a long second before answering. No idea why I picked up, honestly. "Dad had a stroke," she said. Voice flat. No hello, no lead-in. "He's in the ICU." She said it like it was my job to fix it. Like that information should have moved me into action. But I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I just sat there listening. Then she added, "You should come. He's asking for you." That part did hit different. Not because I felt guilt, but because, why? After everything? After calling me a failure, after mocking my wife, using my money like a piggy bank, and then tossing me out like garbage? Now he suddenly wanted me there? I told her I'd think about it and hung up. Sarah walked in a few minutes later and saw my face. I told her what happened. She didn't push, just sat next to me, rested her head on my shoulder and said, "You don't owe them anything." She was right. So I didn't go. A few days later, they showed up. Yep, outside my place. I don't know how they got the address. Maybe a cousin. Maybe they followed me once. Either way, there they were. My mom and Aaron, standing at the gate, looking desperate. Faces tired and washed out. Mom was crying. Aaron looked like he hadn't shaved in weeks. "We just want to talk," she said when I opened the front door. I didn't even step outside. "Then say it from there." She tried pulling the guilt angle again. Said Dad was recovering but weak. Said he might not have much time. Said he kept mumbling my name. Then she asked if I'd consider helping out with some of the medical bills. I laughed, actually laughed out loud. "You mean like the way you helped Grandpa?" I asked. That shut her up. Aaron, though, still had the nerve. He stepped forward and said, "You're really gonna do this? After everything we've done for you?" I swear to God, I almost lost it. But I didn't. I stayed calm. Looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You remember what you said that night at dinner? That you only tolerate me because I pay your bills? Good news. You don't have to tolerate me anymore." I closed the door in their faces. No yelling. No big dramatic speech. Just silence. You'd think after everything, the fake documents, the begging, the screaming at my front door, they'd finally get the message. That they'd back off and just disappear. But people like my parents, they don't let go. They don't accept boundaries. They see your silence as disrespect, your peace as rebellion, and they take that personally, especially when they're broke and desperate. After that last confrontation outside my house, things went quiet for about a month. No calls, no texts, no mystery relatives showing up in my inbox trying to mediate. For a second, I let my guard down. Business was picking up. I'd managed to lease another used semi-truck, old, loud, but dependable, and landed a regular freight gig with a distributor that had me running between Chicago and Indiana twice a week. It wasn't glamorous, but it was steady money, enough to finally stash some savings away. Sarah and I started talking about maybe taking our daughter to see the ocean for the first time that summer. We even looked at little cabins in Tennessee. Something simple. Just 3 of us and Max in the back seat. It felt like we were finally catching a break. Then, one morning, I walk out to the lot behind my small office, just a gravel lot I rented behind a gas station, and my truck is trashed. And I don't mean keyed or tagged. I mean destroyed. Windshield smashed in, every mirror busted clean off, tires slashed, front bumper hanging like it got into a fight with a train, spray paint all over the side, big red letters, "Family Trader," right there, across the door, like I was in some mob movie. I stood there for a minute, just frozen, looking at it, like my brain couldn't fully register what I was seeing. This truck wasn't just metal and wheels to me. It was how I fed my family, how I paid rent. It was freedom. And someone tried to take that away. No cameras, no witnesses. The lot was in a dead zone. I filed a police report. They said they'd look into it, which basically meant nothing would happen. I knew who did it. You know who did it. But unless I had proof, it was just words. The final nail? When I walked around to the passenger side, I found the glove box forced open. They didn't steal anything. They just left a note. Written in Sharpie on the back of a Walgreens receipt, it said, "Still think you're better than us?" Aaron's handwriting. I'd know it anywhere. Sloppy, barely legible, like he never grew out of middle school. I kept that note, didn't hand it to the cops, didn't even tell Sarah about it right away. I just took a deep breath and walked back inside. I was done being polite. I was done waiting for them to self-destruct. Now I was going to bury them legally and make sure they'd never come near me again. First, I got security cameras installed. House, office, truck lot, even dash cams. Everything. Then I went back to the lawyer handling Grandpa's estate and filed a restraining order against my parents and Aaron. I added documentation, all the voicemails, texts, social media messages, and photos of the truck. No note. I kept that for me. The lawyer helped file a civil claim too, property damage and loss of income. I didn't even care about the money. I just wanted it on paper. A paper trail. Something their next victim or future employer could find if they ever ran a background check. While that was processing, I worked off my backup truck. It was slower, older, didn't have a sleeper cab, so I had to rent cheap motels when routes went long. But I made it work. Max rode shotgun most days. Sarah packed me extra sandwiches. My daughter left me little drawings in the glove box. I kept moving. What pissed me off the most wasn't even the damage. It was the message. That note. That smug little question. Still think you're better than us? I never thought I was better. I thought I was free. And that's what they couldn't handle. My success wasn't flashy. I wasn't rich. I wasn't famous. But I didn't need them anymore. That's what drove them mad. That's why they lashed out. Because people like that need someone under them. Someone they can look down on, control, humiliate, when their own lives fall apart. I took that away from them. When the court date came, they didn't even show up. My lawyer said it was probably because they knew they couldn't afford the risk. Losing the case would have put a judgment on their record, made it even harder for them to get loans or credit or whatever half-baked plan they were cooking up next. But the judge approved the restraining order. 6 months renewable, and I did renew it. Twice. At that point, they were basically ghosts. I didn't hear from them. No more doorsteps, no more calls. But word got around. Aunt Lisa called me one night and told me my parents were ashamed to show their faces in town anymore. They'd become a punchline. Whispers at church, awkward glances at the grocery store. Even their old friends had started backing away. Apparently, someone in their friend group had a kid who worked in HR at Aaron's old company. Found out exactly why he got fired. Word spreads fast when your whole life's built on image. Good. They earned every bit of it. Meanwhile, I kept building. By the end of the year, I'd saved up enough to buy my own office trailer. Just a small used one from a contractor who was retiring. Plopped it down behind the lot, hooked up power, turned it into a little dispatch center. Sarah helped design the inside. My daughter helped name it Base Truck. The name stuck. Max got a little bed in the corner. We hung up a whiteboard, some shelves, even got a mini fridge. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. One night, as I was locking up, Sarah pulled into the lot with Olivia in the back seat. They'd brought takeout. We sat on the steps of the office trailer, eating fries, watching the sun go down, and I realized something. They hadn't just damaged a truck. They'd tried to destroy my life, but all they did was make me build a better one. A few months after the truck incident, things finally started feeling solid. I wasn't rich, but I was stable. The restraining order did its job. No more surprises, no more smashed windshields. Just peace. Boring, quiet, reliable peace. The kind that doesn't sound like much until you've lived years without it. Then I got a call from Grandpa. He was calm like always. Told me to stop by that weekend. Said he wanted to finalize everything with the lawyer and make it official. I already knew what he meant, but I didn't push. I'd learned with Grandpa. When he was ready to talk, he talked. So I drove out Saturday morning. Sarah and Olivia came too. Grandpa always had a soft spot for my daughter. He'd saved every drawing she ever gave him, and he kept them framed in his hallway like they were rare museum pieces. She gave him a new one that day. It was a picture of us standing in front of a big red truck with hearts all over it. He stuck it on the fridge right next to the family photo from our wedding. Then we sat down with the lawyer. Grandpa pulled out a folder. It had everything in it. The deed transfer, the revised will, a letter to the court, even a notarized statement explaining why he made the changes. He wasn't messing around. He said, "I've seen what entitlement looks like. I'm not letting it ruin this land." He gave half the remaining property to Uncle Ray, his only brother still alive, and the other half to me. No loopholes. No, unless he apologizes crap. No one else's name appeared anywhere in the documents. Then he handed me a second folder. Inside was a check. 6 figures. He said, "I sold the hunting cabin. Figured you'd put it to better use." I didn't even know what to say. That cabin had been in the family for decades. But he just looked at me and said, "That place held memories for people who stopped caring. It's time for it to hold value for someone who does." I didn't cry. I'm not a big crier. But something inside me cracked a little. The kind of crack that makes you feel seen. Like someone finally acknowledged the years you spent holding everything together while being told you were nothing. That money didn't go towards some flashy car or big house. I used it to lease 2 more trucks and bring on 3 full-time drivers. All guys like me. Overlooked, underpaid, treated like tools by their last company. I paid them fair. Gave them weekends off. Hell, even built a little break room in the corner of the new warehouse we rented. Nothing fancy. Microwave, coffee pot, folding chairs. But it was ours. Business boomed. Word got around that we were reliable, fast, and honest. Soon we had contracts running up to Minnesota, down to Kentucky. It got to the point where I had to hire a dispatcher just to keep up with scheduling. And every time I pulled into the lot, saw the fleet, saw a base truck lit up at night, I'd think, this is what I built without them. And apparently that's what drove them insane. Because somehow, they found out. I don't know if it was a cousin stalking my LinkedIn or someone in town running their mouth. But it didn't take long before the messages started again. Must be nice with Grandpa's money. You're stealing what belongs to our family? Don't forget who raised you. Funny. I never forgot. I just stopped pretending they did a good job. The worst was when my mom tried to play the health card again. Called me sobbing, talking about how Dad's recovery was going backwards, how he needed a new medication they couldn't afford. Tried to guilt me into covering the cost. This time, though, she added something new. We'll lose the house, Caleb. Aaron has nowhere else to go. That was supposed to make me care. I told her flat, you raised a man who cheats, lies, and destroys things he didn't earn. That's not my problem anymore. She snapped. Went full rage mode. Called me every name you can imagine. Said I was cold, heartless. Said Grandpa would be ashamed if he knew what I'd become. Too bad Grandpa was sitting next to me at the time. I'd answered the call on speaker in his living room. He leaned back, sipping his tea, and muttered, she never did know when to shut up. I think that was the last time I spoke to her. 2 weeks later, I found out they tried one final move. They hired some sleazy lawyer to challenge the will. Their claim? Grandpa had been coerced into making the changes. That I'd manipulated him. That he was too old to make legal decisions. They tried to dig up anything they could. Old health records, blurry statements from distant relatives who hadn't seen him in years. Even tried to drag Uncle Ray into it, who told them to go to hell, by the way. Their biggest piece of evidence was a photo of me helping Grandpa up the stairs at the courthouse. You know, doing what decent people do when someone is 84 with a bum knee. The judge dismissed the case in under 10 minutes. Grandpa's lawyer didn't even break a sweat. The court fined them for filing a frivolous suit and wasting time. I heard they had to take out a loan to cover it. Now they were truly sinking. The house? They ended up defaulting. It got auctioned off. I didn't buy it. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want the headache. Let someone else gut it and start over. Aaron? I heard he bounced around a few jobs, none of them sticking. He's living with some girl now who has no idea who he really is. Last I heard, he was telling people I stole from Grandpa and framed him at work. Funny how that story keeps changing. As for my parents, they moved into a small apartment in the bad part of town. Word is, they're scraping by on whatever retirement funds they didn't already burn through. They keep telling people I abandoned them. And they're not wrong. It should have ended with the court case. With the house gone, the will locked down, and me finally free of their mess. But people like my father don't go down with quiet dignity. He'd spent his whole life puffing his chest, mocking others, acting like the world owed him something just for existing. When it all crumbled, he needed a final performance. I got the call on a Tuesday. It was Aaron. First time I'd heard his voice in months. Dad had another stroke, he said. No hello, just straight into it. It's worse this time. They don't know if he's gonna make it. I didn't say anything. He kept going. He's asking for you, man. He keeps saying your name over and over. Just come see him. I waited for the rest. There's always more with him. He doesn't have anyone left, just Mom and me. And she's not doing great either. Please, he just wants to see his son. I almost laughed. He didn't want to see his son. He wanted to see his last shot at a payout. But I didn't say that. I just said, let me think about it, and hung up. I told Sarah later that night while we were making dinner. Olivia was sitting at the table drawing some picture of Max with a superhero cape on. It should have been a peaceful moment. Sarah looked at me and said, you're not really thinking about going, are you? I don't know, I said. I guess. I just want to hear him say it. Admit what he did. She shook her head slowly. He won't. And you know that. I did know. But some small, stupid part of me thought maybe, just maybe, he'd surprise me for once. I drove to the hospital the next day. Sat in the parking lot for 40 minutes. Never went in. Instead, I walked across the street to a gas station, bought a bottle of water, and just stood outside watching people go about their lives. Nurses grabbing snacks, a teenager pumping gas, an old guy walking his dog. Normal people. People not tangled up in years of fake love and backhanded compliments and lies that smell like cheap cologne and kitchen table guilt trips. Then I went home. 2 days later, they showed up. Again. No warning. No call. Just like always. I opened the door and saw them. My mother, Aaron, both standing there like they were auditioning for some pity documentary. Mom's face was drawn out, like she hadn't slept. Aaron looked like someone trying way too hard to look broken. You didn't come, she said. Voice flat. Cold. No, I said. I didn't. He was crying for you, she said, putting a hand on her chest like that was supposed to mean something to me. I didn't flinch. I cried too. Just didn't see you at my door back then. She swallowed hard. I could tell she had more loaded up. Some guilt trip, some Bible verse, maybe another round of, "He's still your father." But Aaron cut in first. "Look, we know things got messed up, but we're still family." I actually smiled at that. "You know what day it is today?" I asked. They looked confused. My mom tilted her head slightly. Aaron glanced at his phone like it was some trick question. "Today's my birthday," I said. "December 23rd. You lived with me for 18 years. Paid my rent with my own job. Covered your bills. And neither of you know when I was born." That shut them up real quick. I stepped out, closed the door behind me, and leaned on the railing. This story is titled, "Parents Raised My Rent to Support My Golden Child Brother. So I left, and now they're desperate for me to come back." Hey everyone, I just wanted to share something real with you. The channel's been slowing down a bit recently, and honestly, I put a lot of time and effort into finding these stories to keep bringing you the best content. If you enjoy what I do, it would mean the world if you hit that subscribe button. Your support really makes all the difference and keeps this journey going strong. Thanks so much for being here with me. Now let's start the video. OP starts by saying, "Hey everyone, my name's Alex and I'm 22. I don't usually post about personal stuff, but I feel like I need to get this off my chest. My family situation has been a mess lately, and I don't know what to do anymore. Maybe hearing some outside perspectives will help me figure things out. So, here goes. I'm currently in college, studying software design. It's something I've been passionate about for a long time, and my dream is to start my own company someday. I work part-time as a junior developer to save up money for my future, while also covering my personal expenses. Since my college is close to my parents' house, I decided to live at home to save on transportation and rent costs. But let me make this clear. I'm not freeloading. I pay my parents $550 every month to contribute to rent and other household expenses. I figured it was fair because it's probably what I'd spend if I lived with roommates, so why not help out my family instead? Things were going fine, or at least as fine as they could be living with my parents. Don't get me wrong, my relationship with them has always been a little complicated. It's pretty obvious they have a favorite child. My older brother, Ryan, is the golden child of the family. He's 23, married, and has 2 kids. Growing up, he was always the one who got into trouble. Skipping school, getting into fights, breaking curfews, you name it, Ryan did it. But no matter what he did, my parents always had his back. Meanwhile, I've been the one who tries to follow the rules, work hard, and stay out of trouble, yet I never get the same level of support or attention. Anyway, about a year ago, Ryan moved out with his wife and kids after borrowing money from my parents and his in-laws to start a business. He claimed it was this big opportunity in construction, and he even bought a house. I was skeptical, but I figured, hey, maybe this time he's actually serious about taking responsibility. Fast forward to now, and surprise, surprise, he's back. He showed up at my parents' house with his entire family, claiming he just needs to stay for a while until a massive payout from his business comes through. He's talking about millions of dollars and promising to buy our family a mansion in some rich neighborhood once he gets the money. My parents are eating it up like it's gospel, hanging on to every word he says. Here's the problem. While Ryan and his family live here rent-free, I'm still expected to pay my $550 every month. And guess how much Ryan is paying? Yep, zero. Nada. Zilch. My parents don't seem to care that he's contributing nothing. It's like they're blind to the fact that he's been leeching off everyone around him his entire life. Meanwhile, the house has turned into complete chaos. Ryan's 2 kids are adorable, but they're toddlers, so they're naturally loud and messy. They've taken over the living room with their toys, and it's impossible to find any peace and quiet. I've tried setting up my workspace in my room, but even that isn't safe. The kids burst in constantly, and Ryan doesn't even try to stop them. He just laughs it off like it's no big deal. His wife isn't much better. She leaves their mess everywhere, from dirty dishes in the sink to laundry piling up in the hallway. What really gets to me is that Ryan and his wife act like they own the place. They've completely taken over the kitchen, and if I so much as ask for a turn to cook, I get eye rolls and passive-aggressive comments about how family shares everything. Yeah, except apparently they don't share in paying for anything. I tried talking to my parents about it, but they just brush me off. My mom told me I need to understand that Ryan is going through a tough time and that family helps family. When I asked if Ryan was going to start pitching in for rent or groceries, she got defensive and told me not to bring it up again. At this point, I feel like a stranger in my own home. I work hard to save money and plan for my future, but it feels like none of that matters to my parents. All they care about is Ryan and his business that may or may not even exist. It's like they're living in this fantasy world where Ryan is some kind of self-made millionaire, and I'm just here to foot the bill while they wait for his big payday. I thought about moving out, but the idea stresses me out. Rent is expensive, and I don't have a huge income. My part-time job pays decently, but between tuition, bills, and trying to save for my future, there's not a lot left over. Plus, I feel like moving out would be admitting defeat. Why should I have to uproot my life because Ryan refuses to take responsibility? It's not fair. I guess what I'm trying to figure out is whether I'm in the wrong here. Should I suck it up and pay more to keep the peace? Or am I right to feel like this is completely unfair? I've always been the type of person who avoids conflict, but this situation is pushing me to my limit. I'm tired of being the one who always has to compromise while Ryan gets a free pass. So yeah, that's my current dilemma. I feel stuck between wanting to stand up for myself and not wanting to make things worse with my family. If anyone's been in a similar situation, I'd love to hear how you handled it. I'll keep you all updated on what happens next. Thanks for reading. Update 1 point. Hey again, it's Alex. So, like I said in the first post, I've been trying to figure out how to handle all this mess with my family. Things were already tense, but recently, it's gone from bad to worse. Honestly, I don't even know where to begin. Last week, my mom came into my room, acting like she was just checking in on me, but I could tell something was up. She started with small talk, asking how work was going, but then quickly shifted the conversation. She said something like, "You know, Alex, since Ryan and his family are staying with us now, the household expenses have gone up a lot." I could feel where this was heading, but I didn't say anything yet. Then she hit me with it. "We're going to need you to pitch in a bit more to help cover everything." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I mean, I've been paying my share, more than my share, for years. I've never once asked for a free ride or complained about my contributions. Meanwhile, Ryan and his wife aren't paying for anything, and they've practically taken over the house. So I asked her straight up, "What about Ryan? Is he going to start paying rent too?" My mom's reaction? She got annoyed and said something vague about how Ryan is in a tough spot right now and how family helps family. Then she just walked out of my room like the conversation was over. I was fuming. It's not even about the money at this point. It's the principle of it. Why am I the only one who has to step up and help the family while Ryan gets a free pass? The next day, my dad backed her up. Over breakfast, he casually mentioned that I should consider contributing more since we're all in this together. I tried to argue my case, but he cut me off before I could even finish. He just got up, said, "Think about it," and walked away. I glanced over at Ryan, hoping for some kind of support or acknowledgement, but he just looked at me and kept eating like nothing was happening. Later that night, after I got home from work, I decided I needed to confront my mom again. I told her I couldn't afford to pay more than I already was. Between tuition, bills, and saving for my future, I was stretched thin as it was. But she didn't care. She started going on about how I needed to sacrifice for the family and how Ryan has kids to take care of. Like, yeah, I get that he has kids, but he's also an adult. Why is it suddenly my job to support his family? Since then, my parents have been giving me the cold shoulder. They barely talk to me, and when they do, it's just passive-aggressive comments about how I'm not being a team player. Ryan, of course, hasn't said a word about it. He just sits back, letting me take all the heat while he continues to live rent-free. His wife hasn't been much better. She started making little remarks like, "It must be nice to have so much money saved up," or, "I wish we had the luxury of focusing on ourselves like you do." I almost laughed the first time she said that because, seriously, what luxury? I've been busting my ass to save every penny while she and Ryan contribute absolutely nothing. What really stings is how little my parents seem to care about everything I've been doing. I've been working hard, staying out of trouble, and paying my way, but none of that seems to matter to them. Meanwhile, Ryan screws up constantly, and they bend over backward to support him. It's like no matter what I do, I'll never measure up to him in their eyes. The breaking point came a few days ago. I was sitting in my room, trying to get some studying done, when my mom barged in without knocking. She dropped a toddler bed in the corner of my room and said, "We're going to set this up in here for the kids. They need more space." I was stunned. My room is the one place in this house that's supposed to be mine. "This is my room. They're trying to turn it into a nursery. You can't just decide to take it over." She just rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be dramatic, Alex. It's not a big deal." I stood my ground, though, and eventually she stormed out, muttering something about how selfish I was. The next day, things escalated even more. I came home from work to find Ryan's wife going through my desk drawers. When I asked her what she was doing, she just smiled and said, "Oh, I was looking for a pen." A pen? There's an entire drawer full of pens in the kitchen, but she decided to invade my personal space instead? It Felt so disrespectful. But when I brought it up to Ryan, he just shrugged and said, she didn't mean anything by it. I tried to let it go, but later that night, I overheard Ryan talking to my parents. He was saying something about how I need to be more supportive and how it's time for Alex to step up and help the family. My blood was boiling. Not only was he freeloading, but now he was trying to guilt trip me into giving up even more of my money and my space for him. That's when I realized I couldn't do this anymore. I've spent my whole life trying to be the good kid, thinking that if I worked hard enough, my parents would finally see my worth. But I've finally accepted that it's never going to happen. They'll always choose Ryan, no matter how much he screws up or how much I succeed. I started looking at apartments that night. It wasn't an easy decision. I don't have a ton of money, and I know moving out will make things even more strained with my family. But I can't keep living like this. I'm tired of being treated like a second-class citizen in my own home. If my parents want to put Ryan on a pedestal, fine. But they're going to have to do it without my help. So, yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm officially done trying to please people who don't appreciate me. I haven't told my family yet, but I've started packing my things little by little. I don't know what their reaction will be when they find out, but at this point, I don't really care. I just want to get out and start living my own life. Thanks for listening, everyone. I'll update you soon with what happens next. Wish me luck. Update 2.0. Hey, it's Alex again. Things have been pretty crazy since my last update, but I'm finally starting to see a light at the end of the tunnel. After everything that's gone down with my parents and Ryan, I've made up my mind. I'm moving out. It's not going to be easy, but at this point, staying here feels impossible. So let me walk you through how I'm planning to pull this off without completely blowing up my relationship with my family. Well, not right away at least. First things first, I started looking for apartments. Let me tell you, finding a place that's affordable, close enough to work and school, and not a complete dump is harder than I thought. Most of the places I found were either way out of my budget or in neighborhoods that felt sketchy. I didn't want to rush into anything, but I also knew I couldn't stay in my parents' house much longer without losing my mind. Every day, the tension was getting worse. My mom kept dropping hints about how things are tight right now and how we all need to make sacrifices. Ryan, of course, was completely oblivious. He and his wife were busy turning the house into their personal playground, and I was just trying to stay out of their way. Eventually, a friend of a friend came through for me. They knew someone, a guy named Jake, who was looking for a roommate. Jake had just rented a small 2-bedroom apartment and needed someone to split the rent and bills. I was skeptical at first. I mean, moving in with a stranger isn't exactly ideal, but after meeting Jake and checking out the apartment, I started to feel like this might actually work. The place was nothing fancy, just a basic setup with a tiny kitchen and a shared bathroom. But it was clean, affordable, and only about a 20-minute walk from campus. The best part was far enough from my parents' house that I wouldn't have to deal with any surprise visits. After we talked it over, Jake agreed to let me move in. We settled on splitting everything 50-50, which would bring my share of the rent to around $400 a month, less than what I've been paying my parents. Even with bills and groceries added in, I'd still be saving money compared to what I'm dealing with now. It felt like a no-brainer. The tricky part was figuring out how to leave without creating a huge scene. I knew if I told my parents I was planning to move out, they'd do everything in their power to stop me. My mom would probably go full guilt trip mode, talking about how I was abandoning the family and how they needed me to help out. My dad would just get angry and accuse me of being ungrateful. And Ryan? He'd probably laugh it off and assume I was bluffing. So I decided to keep it a secret. Over the next couple of weeks, I started packing my stuff little by little. I didn't want to raise any red flags, so I hid most of it in the back of my closet or tucked it away in storage bins. When no one was home, I'd sneak a few things out to my car and drive them over to Jake's place. It was a slow process, but I knew it was the only way to avoid a full-blown family meltdown. During this time, I started pulling back from my family more and more. I stopped eating dinner with them, opting to grab quick meals in my room instead. I avoided any conversations about money or family responsibilities, and focused on getting through each day without losing my temper. It wasn't easy. Every time my mom made a passive-aggressive comment about how everyone needs to pitch in, or Ryan's wife left a mess in the kitchen for me to clean up, I wanted to scream, but I kept reminding myself that it wouldn't be like this for much longer. I had an end date in sight, and that kept me going. One of the hardest parts was keeping my cool around the kids. Like I've said before, I love my niece and nephew, but they've been driving me up the wall lately. They've taken over the living room, the kitchen, and even my room on some days. I can't tell you how many times I've come home from work or class to find toys scattered everywhere, sticky handprints on my desk, or crayon marks on my walls. I tried setting boundaries, but it was like talking to a brick wall. Ryan just laughed it off, and his wife acted like I was being unreasonable. "They're just kids, Alex," she'd say, like that was supposed to make everything okay. Meanwhile, I was counting down the days until I could finally have my own space again. The final straw came a few days ago when I overheard Ryan and my mom talking about my savings. I've been working my ass off for years to save up for my dream of starting a software company. It's not much yet, but it's mine, and I've been really proud of how disciplined I've been about sticking to my budget. So imagine my shock when I heard Ryan telling my mom that I should help the family by chipping in some of my savings. He actually said, "Alex doesn't need all that money right now. He can start his company later. Family comes first." Are you kidding me? I couldn't believe the audacity. I confronted him about it later, and he acted like I was the selfish one for not wanting to give up my hard-earned money. "We're all struggling right now, Alex," he said, like his situation was even remotely comparable to mine. I told him flat out that my savings were off limits and that he needed to start taking responsibility for his own family. He just rolled his eyes and walked away. That was it for me. I went back to my room, grabbed a box, and started packing the last of my things. I was done. I didn't care what my parents or Ryan thought anymore. I knew I deserved better than this. So now, everything is set. I've signed the lease, packed my stuff, and made plans to move out this weekend. I haven't told my parents yet. I figure it's better to rip the Band-Aid off once I'm already gone. I'll leave a note or something explaining my decision, but I'm not going to stick around for the fallout. They can deal with Ryan and his freeloading ways on their own. I know this is going to cause a lot of drama, but honestly, I don't care anymore. I need to do what's best for me, and staying in that house isn't it. I'm ready to start fresh in a place where I can actually focus on my goals without all the chaos and stress holding me back. Wish me luck, guys. I'll let you know how it all goes in the next update. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's Alex again. I finally did it. I moved out. Let me tell you, it wasn't smooth sailing, but I feel like a massive weight has been lifted off my shoulders. This whole experience has been a whirlwind of emotions. Excitement, fear, relief, but I don't regret a thing. Here's how it all went down. So, I planned my move for the weekend when I knew my parents and Ryan's family would be out of the house. They were going to some family friends' barbecue, and I figured it was the perfect opportunity to get everything done without confrontation. I spent the entire week leading up to it, packing the last of my things, making sure everything was ready to go. By the time Saturday rolled around, my car was packed to the brim, and I was ready to leave. I have to admit, it felt weird walking through the house one last time. For all the chaos and drama, it was still the place I grew up in. I stood in my room for a minute, just taking it all in. It wasn't fancy, but it had been my space for years. It felt bittersweet knowing I was leaving it behind, but I kept reminding myself why I was doing this. I needed to put myself first for once. When I got to my new place, Jake was already there to help me unload. I can't tell you how good it felt to see my stuff in an entirely new space, one that was all mine. The apartment isn't anything fancy, just a small 2-bedroom with a shared living room and kitchen, but it's quiet, clean, and most importantly, drama-free. I set up my room with my desk, bed, and a few personal touches. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. The first night in my new place was surreal. I didn't realize how much noise and stress I'd been living with until I was surrounded by complete silence. No kids running around, no arguments about money, no one barging into my room without knocking. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and actually got some work done for the first time in weeks. It felt amazing. Of course, the peace didn't last long. By Sunday evening, my phone was blowing up. My mom had finally noticed I wasn't home and started calling nonstop. I ignored the first few calls, but eventually I knew I had to answer. When I picked up, she didn't even give me a chance to say hello before she started yelling. "Alex, where are you? Why aren't you home? We've been calling you all day." I kept my cool and calmly said, "I don't live there anymore. I've moved out." You could have heard a pin drop on the other end. Then she exploded. "What do you mean you've moved out? Why didn't you tell us? How could you do this to your family?" She went on and on about how I was abandoning them and how they'd been counting on me to help with expenses. When I tried to explain that I'd been paying more than my fair share for years, while Ryan contributed nothing, she completely brushed it off. "Ryan has kids, Alex. You don't understand what it's like to be a parent." That was the point where I knew there was no reasoning with her. I said, "Mom, I've done everything I could to help, but I can't live like that anymore. If you want to support Ryan, that's your choice, but I'm not going to keep sacrificing my own life for it." Then I hung up. I didn't have the energy to keep arguing. The next day, the messages started. My mom sent me a long text about how I was being selfish and ungrateful, followed by another about how I was tearing the family apart. My dad chimed in too, saying he was disappointed in me and that I needed to grow up and understand the importance of family. Ryan even had the audacity to text me saying, "Wow, way to screw over mom and dad when they need you most." Real mature. I didn't respond to any of it. I knew it wouldn't change their minds, and honestly, I was too exhausted to care. I spent the day settling into my new place, getting groceries, and organizing my room. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my own life. A few days later, my mom called again. This time, she wasn't yelling. She sounded more desperate than angry. She started talking about how hard things had been since I left, how they were struggling to pay bills, and how Ryan's kids were upset that I wasn't around anymore. She even tried to guilt-trip me by saying, "We've always supported you, Alex. Is this how you repay us?" I took a deep breath and said, "Mom, I love you, but I've been supporting myself for years. I've been paying rent, working, and saving for my future, while Ryan hasn't contributed a thing. I can't keep putting my life on hold to clean up his messes. It's not fair." She didn't take it well. She started crying, saying she didn't know how they were going to manage without me. It was hard to hear, but I stood my ground. I told her I wasn't coming back, and that they needed to figure things out with Ryan. After that, she hung up, and I haven't heard from her since. Ryan, on the other hand, hasn't stopped trying to contact me. He keeps texting, asking for money, and saying I'm being selfish for not helping out. At one point, he even said, "You've always been the responsible one. Why can't you just step up and help your family?" I almost laughed when I read that. The nerve of this guy. Despite all the drama, I feel like I made the right decision. My new place is quiet, my roommate is cool, and I'm finally able to focus on my studies and work without constant distractions. It hasn't been easy cutting ties with my family, but I know it was necessary. I can't keep sacrificing my own happiness and future for people who don't appreciate me. So yeah, that's where I'm at now. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. Thanks to everyone who's been following my story and offering advice. It's helped more than you know. I'll probably post one final update soon to let you all know how things turn out. Final update. Hey everyone, it's Alex again, and this will probably be my last update. It's been a couple of weeks since I moved out, and honestly, I feel like a completely different person. The fallout from my decision hasn't been pretty, but it's also shown me who my family really is, and who I am when I'm not living under their constant judgment. So, let's dive into how things have been since I left. First off, my mom's reaction hasn't changed much. After her initial meltdown when I told her I was moving out, she switched into full-on guilt trip mode. The texts kept coming every single day, filled with dramatic statements like, "How could you leave us in this situation?" And, "Don't you care about your family?" At one point, she even said, "We sacrificed so much for you, Alex, and this is how you repay us?" It was hard to read those messages without feeling a pang of guilt. I mean, I do love my parents. They've done a lot for me growing up, and I'll always be grateful for that. But what they don't seem to realize is that love and gratitude don't mean letting yourself be taken advantage of. For years, I've been the one keeping things afloat while Ryan contributed nothing. I've paid my share, cleaned up their messes, and put my own needs aside time and time again. Enough is enough. I thought my dad might take a more practical approach, but nope, he's just as bad. He called me a few days after I moved out, and the conversation was exhausting, to say the least. He started off calm, asking me why I felt the need to leave without talking to them first. I explained as clearly as I could that I was tired of being treated like a second-class family member. I told him that I'd been paying rent for years, doing my part, and that it wasn't fair for them to expect me to shoulder even more of the financial burden while Ryan got a free pass. His response? "Alex, you need to understand that Ryan's in a tough spot. He's trying to get his life together, and as his brother, it's your job to support him. Family sticks together." I couldn't believe it. I said, "Dad, Ryan's been in a tough spot his entire life because you and Mom never hold him accountable for anything. I'm done cleaning up his messes. If you want to keep enabling him, that's your choice. But I'm not going to be part of it anymore." That didn't go over well. He accused me of being selfish, of abandoning the family, and even of turning my back on Ryan's kids. That one hurt the most because I do care about my niece and nephew. They're just kids, and none of this is their fault. But it's not my job to sacrifice my future for them, especially when their own parents refuse to step up. Speaking of Ryan, he's been blowing up my phone too. His messages are a mix of guilt-tripping and outright demands. One minute he's saying, "I can't believe you'd leave Mom and Dad in the lurch like this." And the next, he's asking for money to help get back on his feet. At one point, he even sent me this long message about how I've always been the responsible one and how it's my duty to help him out because that's what family does. I didn't respond to any of it. Honestly, what's the point? Ryan has spent his entire life avoiding responsibility, and I'm not going to be the one to bail him out again. If he wants to turn his life around, great. But he's going to have to do it without my help. On the flip side, life in my new apartment has been amazing. It's small, sure, but it's quiet and peaceful, and I finally feel like I have space to breathe. Jake, my roommate, has been super chill. We split the bills and groceries evenly, and there's no drama, no guilt trips, no ridiculous expectations. I've been able to focus on my work and studies for the first time in what feels like forever. I even finished a big project for my software design class last week, something I probably couldn't have done if I was still living at home. The best part? I've started to feel like myself again. For so long, I was stuck in this cycle of trying to prove my worth to my parents, hoping that if I worked hard enough or contributed enough, they'd finally see me as equal to Ryan. But now I realize that's never going to happen, and that's okay. Their favoritism says more about them than it does about me. I don't need their approval to live my life or chase my dreams. I've been talking to a couple of close friends about everything, and their support has been a lifesaver. They've helped me see that setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. Just because someone is family doesn't mean they have the right to take advantage of you. That's a hard lesson to learn, but I'm glad I finally did. As for my parents and Ryan, I've decided to go low contact for now. I still check in with my mom occasionally to let her know I'm okay, but I keep the conversations short and steer clear of any topics related to money or Ryan. It's not perfect, but it's what I need to do to protect my sanity. Maybe one day things will get better, but for now, I'm focusing on myself. So, what's next for me? I'm going to keep saving up for my dream of starting a software company. I don't know how long it'll take or what challenges I'll face along the way, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful. I know I have the skills and determination to make it happen, and without the constant stress of my family weighing me down, I feel like anything is possible. To everyone who's followed my story and offered advice, thank you. Your support has meant the world to me, and it's helped me see that I'm not alone in dealing with toxic family dynamics. If you're in a similar situation, please know that it's okay to stand up for yourself. You deserve to be treated with respect, and sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. This is Alex, signing off. Here's to new beginnings. My brother stood up at Thanksgiving, announced my parents were handing him the family business I built for 15 years. So I burned it down and started my own. Now they're all bankrupt and begging. Sup, Reddit. My golden child brother got handed the family business I built from the ground up. I walked out and took everything with me. What followed was absolute chaos. Here's the full story. I'm 34 male. Gonna set the scene for you. Picture Thanksgiving dinner. The whole family gathered around my parents' dining room table that seats 12, but always feels cramped because of all the tension nobody talks about. Turkey on the table. Mom's famous sweet potato casserole that nobody actually likes but everyone pretends to love. Dad's third glass of sparkling cider because he quit drinking after the heart attack, but still likes something fancy in a wine glass. Everyone's pretending we're some kind of Norman Rockwell painting instead of the dysfunctional mess we actually are. My aunt keeps asking when Lisa and I are going to have kids. My uncle won't shut up about his new boat. Kyle's wife Emma is showing everyone photos from their Hawaii trip on her phone for the third time. Standard Thanksgiving stuff. Uncomfortable but manageable. That's when my brother Kyle, 28 male, stands up with this huge grin, taps his glass with a fork like he's about to give the State of the Union address, and drops the bomb that changed everything. Everyone, I have an amazing announcement, he says, looking around the table like he just won the lottery or cured cancer. Mom and Dad have decided to transfer ownership of Bennett Hardware to me. I'm officially taking over as owner and president starting January 1st. The room went silent except for my fork clattering onto my plate. That metallic clang seemed to echo in the sudden quiet, and I watched my fork bounce once before settling next to my untouched mashed potatoes. Bennett Hardware, the family business my grandfather started in 1968 with a single storefront and a dream of serving his community. The business my dad nearly ran into the ground in the 90s with terrible decisions and worse management. The business I'd spent 15 years rebuilding from scratch after Dad's heart attack forced him into semi-retirement. The business I'd poured my entire adult life into. 70-hour weeks, missed birthdays, canceled vacations, relationships that fell apart because I was always at the store. All of it building toward the assumption that someday this work would be recognized and rewarded. And they were giving it to Kyle. Just like that. No discussion, no warning, no consideration for what I'd sacrificed. My mom was smiling like this was the best news she'd heard all year. That proud mother look she usually reserved for Kyle's mediocre accomplishments. My dad nodded with satisfaction, like he'd just made the smartest business decision of his career. Kyle's wife Emma was practically bouncing in her seat with excitement, probably already mentally redecorating the office and planning shopping trips with the owner's wife budget. Even my aunt and uncle were congratulating him, asking questions about his plans and vision. My cousin Jake, who's worked retail management for years and actually understands business, looked uncomfortable but stayed quiet. Nobody looked at me, not once. Not my parents, not Kyle, not anyone at that table. It was like I didn't exist, like the past 15 years had never happened, like I was just another guest at this celebration of my brother's unearned success. Let me back up and explain how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. This was years of building dysfunction, culminating in one spectacular moment of betrayal that had been decades in the making. Bennett Hardware started as a small shop in our town of about 40,000 people back in 1968. Grandpa Joe was a carpenter by trade, who got tired of driving 30 miles to the nearest hardware store every time he needed supplies. Figured if he needed a local option, other contractors and homeowners probably did too. He started with basic inventory: lumber, nails, hand tools, paint, built relationships with suppliers and customers based on honesty and fair pricing. By the 80s, Bennett Hardware was the go-to spot for anyone who needed quality materials and knew what they were doing. Grandpa had this philosophy that you serve people right and they keep coming back. Revolutionary concept, apparently. The store was never going to make anyone rich, but it was solid. Employed 5 people full-time, paid them decent wages, contributed to the community. Grandpa sponsored Little League teams and donated materials for community projects. The kind of business that made a town better just by existing. When Grandpa Joe died in 1994, I was 6 years old. I remember the funeral, standing in an itchy suit while what seemed like half the town came through to pay respects. Contractors in work boots, old-timers who'd shopped there for decades, suppliers who'd become friends. They all told stories about how Grandpa had helped them out, given them credit when times were tough, taught them what they needed to know. My dad inherited the business in 1995. He'd worked there growing up, but never with the passion Grandpa had. For Dad, Bennett Hardware was just the family ATM, not a business that needed constant attention and smart decisions. Dad's idea of running a business was showing up 3 days a week, playing golf with suppliers, and hoping the numbers worked out through some kind of business magic. Spent more time at the country club than the store. Hired his buddies' kids for positions they weren't qualified for because nepotism trumped competence. Made decisions based on gut feelings instead of data or experience. They didn't work out. By 2003, the first cracks were showing. Inventory management was a disaster. We'd run out of popular items while overstocking things nobody bought. Employee turnover was high because Dad paid minimum wage and treated people like they were disposable. Customer service complaints were piling up. By 2008, Bennett Hardware was hemorrhaging money like a severed artery. Suppliers were threatening to cut us off because Dad had been consistently late on payments. Our credit lines were maxed out. We owed back taxes. The store looked shabby because Dad refused to invest in maintenance or updates. We were genuinely 2 months from bankruptcy, and Dad was still playing golf twice a week and telling himself everything was fine. Then Dad had his heart attack. Massive one, required triple bypass surgery, 2 weeks in the hospital, months of recovery. Doctor told him stress and overwork were killing him, which was darkly funny because Dad wasn't working hard enough to justify either condition. The stress came from watching the business collapse in real time while refusing to change anything or admit there was a problem. I was 19, just finished my first year of community college studying business management. Had been working at the store since I was 14, started stocking shelves after school, then moved up to helping customers, learning inventory systems, eventually handling cash registers and opening procedures. Knew the business inside and out, even if nobody ever acknowledged it or valued that knowledge. Dad called me to the hospital 2 days after his surgery. Still looked terrible, pale, weak, hooked up to monitors. Mom was there too, looking exhausted and scared in a way I'd never seen before. That's when I knew this conversation was going to change everything. "Son," Dad said, his voice rough from the breathing tube they'd just removed, "I need to ask you something important. The business needs someone to run it while I recover. Would you be willing to take over day-to-day operations? Just temporarily, until I get back on my feet." Mom jumped in before I could answer. "We know you're in school, but this is an emergency. The family needs you. We wouldn't ask if it wasn't critical, just temporarily. Famous last words in the history of family businesses everywhere. I looked at my dad lying in that hospital bed, at my mom's worried face, and thought about Grandpa Joe and what he'd built. Thought about the employees who'd lose their jobs if we went under. Thought about being 19 and getting handed the keys to a sinking ship. Okay, I said. I'll do it. That temporary arrangement lasted 15 years. The longest temporary job in recorded history. I put my college plans on hold. Just for a semester, I told myself. That semester turned into a year, then 2 years. Then eventually the idea of going back to school just faded away like morning fog. There was always another crisis, another fire to put out, another reason I couldn't leave. Spent the first 6 months just keeping the doors open, which was harder than it sounds. Our situation was worse than I'd understood. Suppliers weren't just late on payments. Some hadn't been paid in 4 months. Our credit was shot. Banks wouldn't extend any more lines. We were operating on fumes and prayers. The inventory system was an absolute disaster. We were supposedly using some software Dad had bought in 1997 that barely worked on Windows XP. Half the products we had in stock weren't in the computer system at all, just sitting on shelves with handwritten price tags. Meanwhile, the computer showed we had inventory for items that hadn't been in stock for months or even years. I spent 3 weeks doing a complete physical inventory count. Came in before opening and stayed until midnight, scanning every shelf, counting every box, recording everything by hand in notebooks. Found $10,000 worth of merchandise that had been sitting in the back room so long it was obsolete or damaged. Also discovered we'd been telling customers we were out of popular items that we actually had, just misshelved or mislabeled. Customer service was a joke. We had 3 employees who showed up when they felt like it, took hour-long breaks, and spent most of their time gossiping instead of helping people. When customers asked technical questions about products, these employees would just make stuff up, rather than admit they didn't know. Got complaints regularly about wrong information leading to failed projects. I started working the floor myself, helping customers, learning what they actually needed. Turned out when you hire people who know what they're talking about and actually care about solving problems, customers notice and appreciate it. I fired 2 of the 3 employees within the first month. Sounds harsh, and maybe it was, but I didn't have time for people who were actively destroying what I was trying to save. Plus, I discovered they'd been stealing, taking merchandise home and selling it online, pocketing cash from customers who paid in person. Small amounts each time, but it added up to thousands over the years Dad had been checked out. The 3rd employee, Frank, turned out to be solid once he realized someone was actually running the place instead of just collecting a paycheck. He was in his 50s, had worked construction before his back gave out, knew products inside and out. He'd been frustrated for years watching the business decline, but had stayed because he needed the job, and his wife's medical bills meant he couldn't risk unemployment. "I'm glad you're here," Frank told me after the first month. "Your dad's a nice guy, but he had no business running this place. Your grandpa would roll over in his grave if he saw what it had become." I started rebuilding the inventory system from scratch. This was 2008, and I was a 19-year-old who'd grown up with computers, but had never managed a business database. Taught myself from YouTube videos, online forums, trial and error. Stayed up until 3 a.m. for weeks, building spreadsheets, creating databases, teaching myself SQL so I could make the system actually work. Built a custom solution that tracked inventory, automated reordering, integrated with our supplier systems, and generated reports that actually meant something. Every item got a barcode, every transaction got recorded, every supplier relationship got documented. Took 4 months of nights and weekends, but when it was done, I could tell you exactly what we had, where it was, how much it cost, and when we needed to reorder. Suppliers were the next challenge. Most of them were ready to drop us completely because Dad had burned too many bridges. I made personal visits to every major supplier within driving distance. Showed up in person, introduced myself, explained the situation honestly, showed them the new systems, the new management approach, the new commitment to professionalism. "Your father's been telling me the check's in the mail for 6 months, one supplier told me bluntly. "Why should I believe you're different?" "Because I'm not my father," I said. "And I've got a payment plan that I will stick to, even if it means I don't take a salary. You've got my cell number now. If there's ever a problem, call me directly. No more excuses, no more delays, no more broken promises." Most of them agreed to give us one more chance, though several put us on cash on delivery terms until we rebuilt trust. Fair enough. Over the next 2 years, I paid off every old debt, met every payment deadline, proved that Bennett Hardware under new management was worth working with again. Expanded our product lines into areas the big box stores weren't covering well. Did research on what professional contractors needed that they couldn't get at Home Depot or Lowe's. Specialized plumbing fixtures that plumbers needed for historical renovations. High-end power tools that serious carpenters wanted. Contractor-grade materials that job site foremen could rely on. Found our niche serving professional tradespeople who needed quality products, knowledgeable staff, and reliable service. The big stores had selection and low prices, but they couldn't compete with our expertise and relationships. When a plumber called at 7 a.m. because he needed a specific part to finish a job, we'd have it ready for pickup in 20 minutes. Try getting that from a store that makes minimum wage employees follow corporate scripts. Hired better employees and actually trained them. Novel concept in retail. Brought in people who had trades background. Retired contractors. Former electricians. Guys who'd worked construction and knew the products from using them. Paid them above market rate and gave them actual benefits. Created a training program so everyone knew not just what we sold, but why contractors chose one product over another and how to help solve their problems. The numbers started turning around slowly, then faster. First year, I managed to stop the bleeding and break even, which felt like winning the Super Bowl. Second year, we actually turned a profit for the first time in 5 years. Only $30,000, but proof the model worked. Third year, we did $90,000 in profit. Fourth year, we hit $150,000. By year 5, we doubled our annual revenue from Dad's last full year running things. By year 10, we'd opened a second location in the next town over. By year 13, we had 3 locations and were doing $4.2 million annually. 15 years of this. 80-hour weeks. Solving problems. Building relationships. Training employees. Managing inventory. Negotiating contracts. Handling payroll. Dealing with emergencies. Missing family events. Putting my life on hold because the business needed me. And I did it all while Dad was semi-retired, which was a polite way of saying he came in twice a week to second-guess my decisions, tell stories about the good old days that never actually existed, and take credit for the success when talking to his friends at the country club. Built this business from nothing, he'd tell people. My boy helps out with the operations side, but the vision and strategy, that's all me. The vision and strategy that nearly bankrupted the company before I took over. But sure, Dad. Take credit for everything. Meanwhile, Kyle was busy being the favorite child who could do no wrong, living the life I'd sacrificed for the business. Kyle went to State University on a partial athletics scholarship. Baseball, nothing special, barely played in actual games, but enough to make Dad prouder than anything I'd ever accomplished. Spent 4 years partying his way through a communications degree with a 2.6 GPA that would have gotten me disowned, but somehow made him well-rounded in my parents' eyes. After graduation, Kyle bounced between marketing jobs like a pinball. Started at a startup that folded within 6 months. Then an advertising agency where he lasted 8 months before they restructured him out. Then a corporate marketing position where he made it 18 months before being let go for not meeting performance expectations. His resume was a graveyard of failed opportunities and bridges burned. But my parents treated every new position like he'd just been appointed CEO of Apple. Kyle just started at Dynamic Marketing Solutions, Mom would announce at family dinners. They're giving him real responsibility this time. 3 months later. Well, Dynamic wasn't the right fit for Kyle's talents. He's interviewing with some really exciting companies, though. The pattern repeated for 6 years. Job, failure, excuse, new job. Always someone else's failure to recognize his brilliance. Never his own inability to do basic work. When Kyle got engaged to Emma 3 years ago, my parents went completely overboard. Threw them an engagement party that cost more than my entire wedding. Paid for the actual wedding. $20,000 at a country club with a scenic view. 200 guests. Destination bachelor party in Vegas that cost another $3,000. Meanwhile, when Lisa and I got engaged 2 years earlier, my parents' contribution was $500 and a lecture about being financially responsible. We had a backyard wedding with 50 people and a DJ who worked for tips. The whole thing cost about $3,000, which we paid ourselves. It was actually a great wedding, intimate, surrounded by people who genuinely cared. But watching my parents' reaction to Kyle's engagement versus mine hurt more than I wanted to admit. Kyle and Emma bought their first house last year. My parents fronted the down payment. $40,000 just handed over without hesitation. When I'd asked to borrow $10,000 3 years earlier to expand the second store location, Dad said I should learn to manage money better. That expansion, which I eventually funded myself, generated an additional $200,000 in annual revenue. But sure, Dad, ambition is the problem. The favoritism wasn't even subtle anymore. My parents had decided Kyle needed extra help while I'd proven I could handle things on my own. Never mind that my success came from backbreaking work, while Kyle's failures came from entitled laziness. Here's what really burned, though. Kyle never worked at the store. Not once. Not even summers during high school. Dad always said Kyle was too smart for retail work and should focus on his future. While I was learning inventory management and customer service, Kyle was sleeping until noon and playing video games. So sitting at that Thanksgiving table, listening to Kyle announce he was taking over the business I'd built, something inside me just snapped. "Congratulations," I said, my voice flat. "When did you decide this?" My dad cleared his throat. "We've been discussing it for a few months now. Kyle's got fresh ideas and energy. It's time for the next generation to take the lead." "Next generation," I repeated. "I've been running Bennett Hardware for 15 years. I am the next generation." Mom jumped in with her practiced peacemaker routine. "You've done wonderful work, honey, but Kyle has education in business management and communications. He's better positioned to take the company to the next level." Kyle has education in business management. I had to bite my tongue so hard I tasted blood. "What about the expansion plans we discussed?" I asked Dad. "The new warehouse system? The online ordering platform I've been developing?" Dad waved his hand dismissively. "Kyle can handle all that. You've done your part, but it's time to let someone with formal training take over." Formal training. From the guy who barely passed introduction to marketing and got fired from 3 jobs in 5 years. Lisa grabbed my hand under the table. She knew what this meant to me, knew how much I'd sacrificed. She'd watched me work 70-hour weeks for years, skip vacations, miss family events, all to build something I thought would eventually be mine. Kyle started talking about his vision for the company, modernizing the brand, expanding into e-commerce, reaching younger demographics. All buzzwords he'd probably picked up from LinkedIn articles. He had zero understanding of our actual business model or customer base. "What about the contractor accounts?" I asked. "We do 40% of our revenue through commercial contracts with local builders and plumbers. How are you planning to maintain those relationships?" Kyle looked confused for a second, then recovered. "Oh, I'll definitely prioritize relationship management with key stakeholders. That's one of my core competencies." He didn't even know what contractor accounts were. I could tell by the way his eyes glazed over when I mentioned them. "And inventory management?" I pressed. "We're carrying about 800,000 in stock across 3 locations. How are you handling reordering, seasonal adjustments, supplier negotiations?" "I'll obviously learn all that operational stuff," Kyle said, getting defensive. "But the real value I bring is strategic thinking and brand development." Strategic thinking. From a guy who once asked me if Alaska was closer to Russia or Canada. The dinner continued, but I barely heard any of it. My mind was racing through 15 years of memories. Every late night fixing the books. Every weekend managing inventory. Every crisis I'd solved while Dad was golfing and Kyle was finding himself. After dinner, I cornered my parents in the kitchen while Kyle was showing everyone photos of their recent vacation to Hawaii. "I need to understand this decision," I said, keeping my voice level. "I've run Bennett Hardware for 15 years. Why are you giving it to someone who's never worked there?" My dad looked uncomfortable. "Look, you've done great work. Really. But Kyle's family now, he needs stability. This business can provide that for him. I'm family too. I sacrificed college, relationships, everything to save this business when you couldn't." Mom touched my arm with that patronizing gesture she'd perfected. "And we're so grateful. But Kyle needs this opportunity more than you do. You're already established. He's still figuring things out." There it was. The truth underneath all the business talk. Kyle needed to be taken care of, so they were handing him my life's work like a participation trophy. "What's my role going to be?" I asked. Dad looked relieved that I'd asked instead of fought. "Kyle will need support during the transition. We were hoping you'd stay on as operations manager. Help him learn the ropes." Operations manager. After 15 years of running everything, I'd be demoted to teaching my incompetent younger brother how to do my job. For how long? 6 months, maybe a year. Just until Kyle gets comfortable with everything. I nodded slowly, doing mental calculations. "And compensation?" "We'll work out fair terms," Dad said vaguely. "Kyle will obviously get the ownership stake and profit sharing, but you'll have a steady salary. A steady salary while Kyle collected profits from the business I'd built." Perfect. That night, Lisa and I stayed up until 3 a.m. talking it through. She was angrier than I was, which helped me process the whole thing. "You should quit," she said flatly. "Walk away and let them drown." "It's the family business," I argued weakly. "Grandpa Joe built it. I can't just abandon it. Your grandfather built it. Your father nearly destroyed it. You rebuilt it. And now they're giving it to someone who doesn't deserve it and never worked for it. Lisa wasn't wrong. If I leave, it'll collapse. Kyle can't run a hardware store. He doesn't know inventory from interest rates. That's not your problem, Lisa said. You've spent 15 years fixing their mistakes. How many more years are you going to sacrifice? I couldn't sleep that night. Kept thinking about all the decisions that had led here. Every time I'd said yes when I should have said no. Every sacrifice I'd made, thinking it would eventually mean something. By morning, I'd made my decision. Monday morning, I walked into Bennett Hardware at 6 a.m., like always. Opened the store, checked inventory shipments, reviewed the weekend sales numbers. Normal routine. Then I started documenting everything. Spent the next 2 weeks creating detailed records of every system, every supplier relationship, every customer account, every operational procedure. Wrote it all down in excruciating detail, but kept the copies for myself. The versions I left for Kyle were deliberately incomplete, missing key details, skipping critical steps, leaving out supplier contact information that took me years to develop. Nothing illegal, just unhelpful. I also reached out to our key suppliers privately, told them I was moving on from Bennett Hardware and wanted to maintain our professional relationships for future opportunities. Several of them said they'd been working with me, not the company, and would follow wherever I went. Called our biggest contractor accounts too. Same conversation. Thanked them for years of business, let them know I wouldn't be involved with Bennett Hardware going forward, but hoped we could work together again someday. They all said variations of the same thing. They'd been doing business with me personally, not the Bennett name. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I walked into Dad's office and put my resignation letter on his desk. He looked up from his newspaper. Yeah, he read the actual newspaper during business hours, and seemed genuinely surprised. What's this? My resignation. Effective immediately. I've prepared transition documents for Kyle. They're on the shared drive. Dad's face went red. You can't just quit. Kyle needs you here for the transition. Kyle's an adult with a business degree. He'll figure it out. This is incredibly selfish, Mom said. She'd appeared in the doorway like she'd been listening. Probably had been. After everything we've done for you. That line almost made me laugh. After everything you've done for me? I've run this business for 15 years. I saved it from bankruptcy. I built it into something successful. And you're giving it to Kyle because he needs stability. You haven't done anything for me. We gave you a job when you needed one, Dad said. I gave myself a job. I gave myself 15 jobs. I did everything while you played golf and told yourself you were still relevant. Mom looked like I'd slapped her. How dare you speak to your father that way? I'm done, I said simply. Kyle can have the business. He can have the headaches, the stress, the 70-hour weeks. I'm walking away. You'll never work in this industry again, Dad threatened. I know everyone in this business. No, you don't. You used to. 15 years ago. But I'm the one who built the relationships. I'm the one suppliers call when they have problems. I'm the one contractors trust. You're just the name on the building. I walked out without looking back. Kyle called me that afternoon, trying to sound friendly. Hey man, I heard you resigned. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I really need your help with the transition. Read the documents I prepared, I said. Everything you need is in there. But those documents are like 50 pages. Can't you just walk me through the important stuff? The important stuff is all in there. You have a business degree. You'll figure it out. Come on, don't be like this. We're brothers. You're right. We are brothers. And a real brother wouldn't take something his sibling spent 15 years building. He got defensive then. Mom and Dad offered it to me. Was I supposed to say no? Yeah, actually. That would have been the decent thing to do. That's not fair. You're mad at them, not me. I'm mad at all of you. You think you can run a hardware store because you have a degree and some LinkedIn articles about disruption. You're going to fail. And when you do, don't call me. He hung up without responding. For the next month, I took a real vacation for the first time in 15 years. Lisa and I went to the mountains, stayed in a cabin with no cell service, and I tried to figure out what came next. The answer came from an unexpected source. Frank, the longtime employee who'd been there since Dad's days, called my personal cell. I know you said you were done, but I thought you should know what's happening at the store. I'm trying not to think about it, I admitted. Kyle's driving it into the ground. He changed all the supplier contracts without reading them first. We're locked into premium rates on stuff we used to get at cost. He fired our best salespeople because he thought they were too old for our target demographic. And he's been posting on social media about our grand reopening next month, where he's planning to give away free merchandise to build brand awareness. That got my attention. Free merchandise? Yeah, He's planning to give away about 30,000 in tools and supplies as promotional items. Says it's a loss leader strategy. Loss leader strategy. Kyle had learned a business term and immediately misapplied it. How are the numbers looking? Bad. We're down 40% from this time last year. Contractors are calling asking for you. Suppliers are confused about the new contracts. And Kyle spends most of his time in his office working on rebranding initiatives instead of actually running the business. I thought about warning them. Seriously considered calling my parents and explaining that Kyle was actively destroying what I'd built. But then I remembered them at Thanksgiving, smiling while they gave away my future to someone who didn't earn it or deserve it. Thanks for letting me know, Frank. I appreciate it. What should I do? Update your resume? Start looking for other opportunities. This won't end well. That night, Lisa asked what I was thinking about. I'd been quiet all evening, clearly processing something. I want to start my own hardware store, I said. She smiled. I was wondering when you'd figure that out. It's risky. No guarantee customers will follow me, and it'll take everything we have saved. You built Bennett Hardware from nothing once. You can do it again. I started planning immediately. Found a commercial space in the next town over, about 20 minutes from Bennett's locations. Far enough to avoid direct competition accusations, close enough that contractors could easily reach us. Used our savings for first and last month's rent. Bought basic inventory from suppliers I'd worked with for years. Several of them extended credit based on our relationship, which was huge. Named it Summit Hardware. Clean, simple, professional. Soft opened in February, 3 months after leaving Bennett Hardware. Didn't announce it publicly, just let word spread through my contractor network. Within 2 weeks, I had my old customers stopping by, checking out the new place. The feedback was immediate and overwhelming. This is what Bennett's used to be before Kyle took over, one contractor told me. We're so glad you're back. By March, Summit Hardware was doing steady business. Nothing spectacular yet, but profitable from day one because I knew exactly what I was doing. Meanwhile, Bennett Hardware was imploding. Frank quit and came to work for me. He brought intelligence about just how bad things had gotten. Kyle's grand reopening promotion cost them $45,000 in free merchandise and generated almost no new business. Most people just took the free stuff and never came back. The rebranding initiative alienated their core customers. Kyle had redesigned everything with a modern, minimalist aesthetic that looked nothing like a hardware store. Contractors who'd shopped there for decades felt like they were walking into an Apple store instead of a place to buy power tools. Employee morale was destroyed. Kyle had fired the experienced staff and hired younger people with better energy who knew nothing about hardware or customer service. Turnover was over 80% in 4 months. The financial situation was catastrophic. Kyle had signed terrible contracts with suppliers because he didn't understand the pricing structures. He'd invested heavily in social media marketing that generated lots of likes but zero sales. He'd committed to a new computer system that cost $60,000 and didn't integrate with their existing inventory management. In April, Summit Hardware had its first month where revenue exceeded Bennett Hardware's numbers from the same month previous year. My 3-month-old startup was outperforming the established family business. That's when my parents called requesting an emergency family meeting. We met at their house, the same dining room where Kyle had announced his takeover at Thanksgiving. Now both my parents looked exhausted and worried. Kyle was there too, but he wouldn't make eye contact. Dad started with his usual authoritative approach. We need to discuss the situation with Bennett Hardware. What situation? I asked innocently. You know what situation. The business is struggling. Kyle's still learning. We need your help to turn things around. I gave you detailed transition documents. Kyle has a business degree. What more help does he need? Mom's voice was tight. Don't be difficult. This is family business. Your grandfather's legacy. My grandfather's legacy was a successful hardware store serving the community. What's happening now is something else entirely. Kyle finally spoke up. Look, I know I made some mistakes, but I'm learning. We just need some guidance to get back on track. What kind of guidance? Come back, Dad said bluntly. We'll work out a partnership arrangement. You and Kyle can run it together. Partnership arrangement, I repeated. You mean I do all the work while Kyle has the ownership stake and takes credit? It wouldn't be like that, Kyle protested weakly. That's exactly what it would be like. Just like before, except now I'd be cleaning up your messes instead of Dad's. Mom tried the guilt approach. Your grandfather built this business. Don't you care about preserving his memory? I preserved it for 15 years. Then you gave it to someone who's destroying it in 4 months. That's on you, not me. Dad's face was getting red again. You started a competing business out of spite. You're actively trying to destroy us. I started a business because it's what I know how to do. I'm not trying to destroy anything. I'm just not trying to save you anymore. We could lose everything, Mom said, and for the first time she sounded scared instead of angry. You gave everything to Kyle. That was your choice. The meeting ended badly. Dad threatened legal action about non-compete agreements that didn't exist. Mom cried about family loyalty. Kyle sat there looking miserable, probably realizing for the first time that having something handed to you and actually running it are two very different things. I left feeling nothing. Not satisfaction, not guilt, just exhausted indifference toward people who'd never valued me until they needed something. May brought more interesting developments. Bennett Hardware's main supplier cut them off after unpaid invoices stacked up. The bank called their line of credit due to covenant violations. 2 of their 3 locations closed. Meanwhile, Summit Hardware was thriving. I'd hired 3 more employees, all experienced people who'd left Bennett's after Kyle took over. Expanded our inventory. Started my own contractor loyalty program that was immediately popular. One of Bennett's biggest contractor accounts called me directly. They'd been doing business with Bennett Hardware since my grandfather's time. Their purchasing manager got right to the point. We've had nothing but problems since you left. Delayed orders, wrong products, nobody who knows what they're talking about. We want to move our account to Summit Hardware. That account alone was worth about $200,000 annually. I signed them on the spot. In June, my parents put Bennett Hardware up for sale. The listing price was laughably optimistic given the company's current condition. No serious buyers emerged. Kyle got a job doing social media management for a car dealership. Emma left him. Apparently, she'd signed up to be married to a successful business owner, not someone who'd spectacularly failed at his big opportunity. My parents' financial situation was dire. They'd guaranteed business loans personally. The house was at risk. Their retirement savings had been invested in the business that was now worthless. July brought another family meeting request. This time just my parents, no Kyle. They looked like they'd aged 10 years and 8 months. We need your help, Dad said without preamble. Not for us, for your mother. The house is going into foreclosure. We've lost everything. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, meaning it. I wasn't happy they were suffering. I just wasn't going to fix it. You could buy Bennett Hardware, Mom suggested. We'd sell it to you below market value. You could merge it with your new business. Bennett Hardware has no market value, I pointed out. The brand is damaged. The inventory is outdated. The locations are underwater on their leases. There's nothing there worth buying. So you'll just let it die? Dad asked. I'm not letting anything happen. You made choices. Kyle made choices. Those choices had consequences. This is revenge, Mom said bitterly. You're punishing us for choosing Kyle. No, I'm living my life. I'm running my business. Your situation is the result of your own decisions, not my revenge. They left without saying goodbye. My parents tried one more time to reconnect. A letter arrived asking if we could talk. No demands this time, no guilt trips. Just a request to talk. We met at a neutral coffee shop. They both looked smaller somehow, diminished. Dad's hair had gone completely gray. Mom's hands shook slightly as she stirred sugar into her coffee. We were wrong, Dad said after a long silence. About Kyle, about the business, about how we treated you. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because it's true, Mom said. We thought we were helping Kyle by giving him the business. We thought he'd step up and become the man we always believed he could be. We were wrong. You didn't just give him the business, I said quietly. You took it from me. After I spent 15 years building it, you gave it to someone who hadn't earned it. That's what hurt. I know, Dad said. I know that now. I was proud of you, but I never told you. I thought tough love would make you stronger. All it did was push you away. I needed you to see me, I told them. Not as free labor, not as someone reliable who'd always be there to clean up messes, just as your son who worked his tail off for something that mattered. We talked for 2 hours. They didn't ask for anything. No money, no help, no second chances. Just acknowledged what they'd done and apologized. I didn't forgive them. Not completely. Some things don't heal that easily. But I listened. A month later, I hired my dad part-time at Summit Hardware. Not running anything, just working the floor, helping customers, using his actual knowledge of hardware that had been buried under years of executive detachment. He was good at it. Customers liked him. I didn't hire Kyle. He's still at the car dealership, apparently doing okay. We don't talk much, but it's not hostile anymore. Just 2 people who were once brothers and now are pleasant strangers. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. I was still shaking snow off my coat when my dad looked up from his drink and muttered, Didn't know the parasite was invited. A few relatives laughed. I didn't react. During dinner, I dropped my own bomb and watched their jaws hit the floor. Sup, Reddit. Ever get called a parasite at a family dinner and decide that's the perfect moment to hit them with a reality check? Grab some popcorn. This is gonna be fun. Name's Damon, 33 male. I was still brushing snow off my shoulders when my dad looked up from his coffee and said it loud enough for half the room to hear, "Look who finally showed up, our resident parasite." The word just sat there. Some smiled. Some looked away. A few cousins actually laughed, like he just delivered the punchline to a joke they'd been waiting for all night. My Uncle Roger chuckled. I didn't flinch. Just hung my coat on the rack and walked to the furthest seat from the main table. The one by the drafty window. Figured I'd stay maybe 90 minutes, eat some food, then ghost before midnight. This happened last winter on New Year's Eve, when my sister Cassie decided to host the family dinner at her place in Scottsdale Nice House. Spanish tile, vaulted ceilings, one of those kitchens that looks like it belongs in a magazine. Her husband Paul paid for most of it with his corporate job, but nobody talked about that part. My family isn't the type that does feelings or apologies. Growing up, I had to figure out what people were thinking before they said it out loud. My parents weren't abusive in the textbook way. No black eyes or missing meals. They just knew how to make you feel worthless without ever raising their voices. I dropped out of Arizona State when I was 21. That's the headline they've been dining out on for over a decade. Doesn't matter that I left, because the software I'd built got picked up by a regional bank, and suddenly I was managing real contracts. Doesn't matter that 3 years later, I sold my stake for enough money to never work again if I didn't want to. To them, I quit. Couldn't handle real life. I'm the cautionary tale they trot out whenever someone's kid is struggling. At least he's not like Damon. I rarely showed up to family events anymore. Last time was 2 Thanksgivings ago, when my mom asked if I was still doing that computer thing. This was 6 months after I'd closed an 8-figure government contract. I remember staring at her across the table, wondering if she was genuinely clueless or just committed to the bit. I stayed quiet, but this time felt different. Cassie called me personally 3 days before New Year's. Said she missed me. Said the family wasn't complete without me. Then she dropped the line that made me hesitate. She said Mom and Dad had been asking about me, that they wanted to reconnect. Against every functioning brain cell I had, I said maybe. Then the days rolled by and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Show up, eat some food, leave before the ball drops. I pulled up to their place at 8:30, late enough to miss the appetizers. The house had all the lights on, and for maybe 5 seconds, I let myself believe this time would be different. Then Dad saw me first. Our resident parasite. The dining room was packed, long table covered in gold and silver decorations. Fancy glasses already half empty. Every seat was full except mine in the corner. I walked past relatives I barely recognized. My mom's sister Susan shot me a sympathetic look. My older cousin Kevin was talking loudly about his promotion. Mom barely acknowledged me, just said, "Oh, good, you made it," then turned back to her conversation. I sat down and watched. Kevin was holding court about his corner office. Everyone nodded, raised their glasses, acted impressed. I picked at the breadbasket. Then halfway through the main course, someone clinked a glass. My Uncle Roger stood up, already tipsy, and announced it was time for the annual success check-in. My stomach dropped. I'd forgotten about this tradition. It was this thing they'd started years back. Everyone goes around and shares their wins from the past year. Promotions, achievements, big purchases, supposed to be motivating. Really, it was just a chance for people to flex and for others to feel inadequate. The table went around one by one. Kevin talked about his raise. My Aunt Brenda mentioned her son getting into law school. Cassie shared that Paul had been headhunted for a VP position. Everyone clapped and congratulated. Then it got to me. Cassie tried to skip over me, but Roger laughed and said, "What about Damon? Still figuring it out?" I looked up. "Still figuring it out," I repeated flatly. A few people chuckled. That's when Paul leaned over. "Hey man, where do you work these days?" I paused. Part of me wanted to give some vague answer, but I was tired of shrinking. I told him the company name, Sentinel Risk Analytics. He blinked. Then his face changed. "Wait, what?" he said slowly. "You work at Sentinel." "I run it," I said. "Pardon me?" He sounded confused. "Yup, founded it 7 years ago." The table went quiet. Dead quiet. Forks frozen midair quiet. And that's when I realized nobody here knew. None of them had ever bothered to ask what I actually did. They'd just decided I was a failure. Paul stared at me like I'd just grown a second head. Holy crap. I took a slow sip of water. Let them marinate in it. "Who?" my dad said, his tone sharp, defensive. Paul looked around the table like he was waiting for someone else to explain. When nobody did, he turned back to me. Sentinel Risk Analytics is one of the biggest names in fintech fraud detection. They work with half the major banks in the country. I use their software every day at work. I took a sip of water and waited. My mom laughed. That fake tinkling laugh she used when she was uncomfortable. Damon doesn't run anything. He does some kind of computer work freelance stuff. Paul shook his head. No, I'm serious. I've been in meetings where people talk about Sentinel like it's the gold standard. They caught that massive fraud ring in Dallas last year, saved the bank something like $400 million in losses. He pulled out his phone, typing fast. Then he turned the screen toward Cassie. That's him, that's your brother. Cassie looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. Her face went pale. Damon, is this real? I nodded. Yeah, that's real. The vibe in the room completely changed. It was like watching dominoes fall. Confusion first, then disbelief, then something uglier. Resentment maybe, or embarrassment. My dad set his fork down hard. You're telling me you run some tech company and you never thought to mention it. You never asked, I said, voice calm. That's not the same, Mom jumped in. You let us think you were struggling. You let us worry about you. Worry about me. Right. When exactly were you worried? I asked. When you called me a parasite 5 minutes after I walked in. Or when you asked if I was still doing that computer thing. Or maybe it was when you said I was wasting my potential and should have stayed in school. Damon, Cassie started. Her voice was soft, warning me to back off. But I was done backing off. I didn't tell you because there was no point, I continued. You'd already decided who I was. So yeah, I stopped trying. Kevin, because he physically can't stand not being the center of attention, cleared his throat. I mean, come on. Running a company and founding a company are two different things. Lots of people have fancy titles. Paul cut him off. No. I've literally seen Damon present at a conference 2 years ago, keynote speaker. He was talking about machine learning applications in fraud detection. I didn't make the connection until just now, because I didn't know Cassie's brother worked in fintech. He looked at me. Dude, I'm sorry. I had no idea you were dealing with this. My dad's face was red now. You think you're so much better than everyone here? That's what this is. Some kind of power play. Nope, I said. I think I'm tired of being treated like I don't exist unless you need someone to punch down on. Nobody said anything. Uncle Roger was staring at his plate. My cousin Nicole looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Even Kevin had gone quiet. That's when my cousin Adam spoke up. He was younger than me by about 4 years. Worked in financial compliance. We'd always gotten along okay, but we didn't really keep in touch. I've heard of Sentinel, Adam said quietly. We almost hired them last year for our fraud detection overhaul. The price tag was pretty steep though, like $500,000 for implementation. He looked at me. Is that accurate? More or less, I said. Depends on the size of the institution and the level of integration they want. Adam nodded, then did some quick mental math. If you're running contracts like that with major banks, you're pulling what? Like $10 million a year in revenue? More than that, I said. But who's counting? Another silence followed. Heavier this time. Because now it wasn't just abstract success. Now there were numbers attached, real numbers, that made it impossible to dismiss. My mom's voice was tight. You could have helped us. We've been struggling. Your father's retirement account took a hit a few years ago. We had to refinance the house. And you were just sitting on all this money. I turned to look at her. Really? That's where we're going with this, I owe you. Your family, she said. Like the word family was a magic spell that erased a decade of cruelty. Right, I repeated. The same family that called me a parasite tonight. Dad stood up, chair scraping loud. You've always had an attitude problem. No, I said, standing up too. I just figured out the rules were rigged, and I stopped playing. This is exactly what I'm talking about, he shot back. Ungrateful. Selfish. Getting lucky, I said. Is that what 7 years of 80-hour weeks is, building something from nothing while you told everyone I'd failed? Cassie stood up too. Okay, everyone just calm down. It's New Year's Eve, can we not do this? But it was too late. Mom turned to me. If you were doing so well, you could have at least sent money. I stared at her. You didn't talk to me for 2 years after I left school. No one said anything. You didn't want a relationship, I continued. You wanted an ATM machine, but only after you found out I had money. Before that, I was just the parasite. I grabbed my coat and headed for the door. Damon, that's not fair, Cassie said. Her voice cracked. I stopped, turned back. You know what's not fair, I said. Spending 12 years being treated like I'm worthless. But sure, I'm the unfair one. Happy New Year. And I walked out. I sat in my car for 20 minutes. Engine running. My phone buzzed constantly. Cassie, Mom, Paul, numbers I didn't recognize. The family phone tree was working overtime. I didn't answer any of them. I drove home in silence. My place in Tempe was quiet. I'd bought it 3 years ago when the company took off. Paid cash. I stood by the window watching fireworks pop off in the distance. My phone kept buzzing. I finally looked at it around 11:30. Cassie, please call me. I didn't know it was like that. I'm so sorry. Mom, you embarrassed your father in front of everyone. Paul, that was intense. You okay? Adam, dude, I had no idea about any of this. If you want to grab a drink, let me know. I didn't respond to any of them. Not yet. I spent the next few weeks in a weird limbo. Work kept me busy. Major contract with a credit union consortium out of Denver. Cassie called 5 times in those first 2 weeks. I didn't pick up. She left voicemails. Long ones. Saying she felt awful. Saying she didn't realize it had been that bad. Saying she wanted to make it right. I believed she meant it. Cassie had always been the good one. The one who tried to keep peace. But meaning it, and actually doing something about it, were different things. Paul texted once asking if I wanted to grab lunch. I said maybe later. Adam texted too. More casual. Just checking in. Saying if I ever wanted to talk, he was around. That one I actually responded to. Said thanks. Said I'd keep it in mind. Then this happened. In late January, I got a letter. Certified mail. Law office in Phoenix. My parents were selling their house, giving me first right of refusal at a family discount before listing it. I read that letter 3 times. Then started laughing. Because of course, that's how they'd reach out. Not with an apology. With a real estate transaction. The letter was professional. Market value was around $600,000. They were offering it to me for $520. Act fast. I set the letter down and did what I always do when I need information. I started digging. I spent 3 days building a complete picture. What I found was fascinating. My parents were broke. Not quite bankrupt, but close. Dad's retirement account had been gutted 3 years ago when he invested in some cryptocurrency scheme run by a guy named Alan, some motivational speaker with a podcast who promised 10 times returns in 6 months, had a website with stock photos of Lambos and beaches. That investment tanked. Took about $200,000 with it. Money they couldn't afford to lose. Then they refinanced the house to cover the loss. Took out a new mortgage at a higher interest rate because their credit had taken a hit. Now they were struggling to make payments. The bank had already sent them a pre-foreclosure warning. They had maybe 4 months before things got really ugly. The offer to me wasn't generosity. It was desperation wrapped in legal letterhead. They needed to sell fast and avoid the embarrassment of a foreclosure. And they figured I was stupid enough or guilty enough to bail them out. My dad, who'd called me a parasite, had lost everything on a scam. Meanwhile, I'd actually built something real. You can't make this stuff up? Part of me wanted to ignore it. But another part saw an opportunity. I made a call to a contact at a regional bank. VP of commercial lending. We'd saved his institution about $60 million in losses. He owed me. I asked about a specific property in Scottsdale, my parents' address. He confirmed what I already knew. Pre-foreclosure. Owners in distress. I asked what they'd take. All cash. Quick close. He said $450, maybe $430 if I could close in 3 weeks. I said I'd get back to him. Then I made another call. To my lawyer, had him set up an LLC, clean, anonymous. 1 week later, the LLC made an offer. $440, all cash. Close in 20 days. The bank accepted same day. My parents never knew it was me. They got a letter from the bank saying the property had been sold to a development company. They'd have 30 days to vacate. I didn't evict them. Not immediately. But I also didn't tell them I owned it. I let them sit in that uncertainty. That's when Cassie called again. This time I picked up. Damon, Cassie said. Her voice was tight. Did you buy Mom and Dad's house? Why would you think that? I asked. Because Paul said you have real estate investments, and the timing seems weird. I didn't answer right away. Cassie, I finally said, do you think I'm obligated to save them? After everything. She let out a long breath. I don't know, she said quietly. Maybe. They're our parents. They're people who treated me like garbage, I said, who never asked about my life until they found out I had money. I know, she said quietly. I know it's been bad. But they're old. They're scared. They don't know how to handle this. I corrected her. There's a difference between being scared and being entitled. Scared people ask for help. She didn't respond. Tell me, did you buy it? She asked again. Yeah, I said. I bought it. Silence again. What are you going to do? She asked. I don't know yet, I said. I'm figuring it out. That was partially true. I had a plan. But it wasn't fully formed yet, and I wasn't ready to share it with anyone. She sighed. Damon, I get that you're angry, and you have every right to be, but please don't do something you'll regret. There won't be any regrets, I said. That's the one thing I'm sure of. We talked for a few more minutes. She asked about work. I kept it vague. She mentioned that Paul wanted to reach out but wasn't sure if I'd want to hear from him. I said it was fine, that Paul was decent, that none of this was his fault. Before we hung up, she said one more thing. Adam's been asking about you. He wants to help if he can. Help with what? I asked. I don't know, she said, but he seems genuine about it. I thought about that after we hung up Adam, the cousin who'd always been in the background, who worked in financial compliance, who'd casually dropped that detail about Sentinel's contracts being worth serious money. Maybe he saw something the rest of them didn't, or maybe he was just another person trying to get close now that they knew I was worth something. Either way, I texted him, said I was free for drinks if he was still interested. He responded in under 5 minutes. How about this Friday? We met at a diner in downtown Phoenix, nothing fancy. Adam showed up right on time. So, he said after the coffee came, that was quite the New Year's. I laughed. That's one way to put it. He took a sip. I've been thinking about it a lot, about how nobody knew, how we all just assumed you were struggling and nobody bothered to check. It's easier that way, I said. Assumptions don't require effort or accountability. He nodded. Fair, but for what it's worth, I feel like garbage about it. I should have reached out years ago. You and I used to get along okay before everything got toxic. That was true. Before the family dynamics turned into a full contact sport, Adam and I used to hang out at family events. We'd played video games together. I don't blame you, I said. You weren't the one calling me a parasite. No, he agreed. But I also didn't say anything when they did. Fair point. We talked for a while, about work mostly. He told me about his job. I told him about Sentinel, about landing our first client, about the moment 3 years ago when we got the call from the Federal Reserve. That must have felt incredible, Adam said. It did, I admitted, but also terrifying. Did you mess it up? He asked. I smiled. We caught them. Adam shook his head. And your parents still thought you were doing freelance computer work? Yep, he laughed. That's impressive. The level of willful ignorance. We ordered another round. The conversation shifted. He mentioned he'd heard through the family grapevine that my parents' house had sold, that they were freaking out. Did you really buy it? He asked. No judgment, just curious. I did, I said. Through an LLC. He nodded slowly. What's the plan? Honestly, I said, I'm still figuring that out. He leaned back. Can I ask you something? Sure. What do you actually want out of this? Not from them, from yourself. I thought about that nobody had asked me that before. Not even me. I want them to see me, I finally said, as a person who succeeded in spite of them, not because of them. He nodded. That's fair. He finished his coffee. Well, if you need someone in your corner who actually knows what you built, I'm here. Not for the money or the access or whatever, just because I think you deserve at least one person in this family who isn't a complete jerk about it. I looked at him. He seemed genuine. Thanks, I said. I mean it. On the drive home, I thought about what he'd asked, what I actually wanted, and slowly a plan started to form. It took me 3 weeks to set everything up. The paperwork, the filings, the legal structure. My lawyer thought I was crazy, but he did what I asked. I created a foundation, the Brennan Opportunity Fund, mission statement, supporting underserved entrepreneurs who've been told they're not good enough. Focus areas, first-generation college dropouts, people from low-income backgrounds. Anyone who'd taken the unconventional path and been punished for it, I seeded it with $1 million of my own money. Set up a board, hired a part-time director to handle applications and outreach. The plan was simple. The house would be converted into an incubator space. 6 individual offices, shared conference room, kitchen. Everything a startup needed rent would be subsidized. $50 a month, just enough to make sure people valued it. And the first round would be people I'd personally vetted, including Jordan, the kid I'd been helping who'd built a budgeting app. It was perfect. My parents' house, the place where I'd been made to feel worthless, would become a launching pad for people like me. I quietly started the application process and reached out to a few organizations that worked with underserved entrepreneurs. Adam was the first person I told. We met up again a few weeks after that first coffee. Same diner, same setup. I laid out the whole plan. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he sat back and smiled. That's brilliant, he said. And a little bit savage. They'll drive past that house for the rest of their lives knowing what it became. Maybe, I admitted. That's not the worst side effect. He took a sip of his coffee. When are you telling them? My mom's 60th birthday is coming up in March, I said. Cassie's planning a dinner. I'm thinking that's the time. Oh man, Adam said. His eyes went wide. That's going to be nuclear. Probably. He leaned forward. Can I be there? Not at the dinner, but after. When things blow up. I want to help run interference if you need it. I looked at him. Why are you doing this really? He set his drink down, looked me right in the eye. Because I'm tired of this family pretending everything's fine when it's rotting from the inside. And because honestly, what you're doing with that foundation is the coolest thing anyone in this family has ever done. I want to be part of it if you'll let me, just because it matters. Okay, I said. You can help. We spent the next hour mapping out how it would go. Adam mentioned he could help with the financial compliance side of the foundation. Make sure everything was airtight legally. Over the next few weeks, he became something I didn't know I needed. An ally. Someone who could look at the situation objectively and call out nonsense when he saw it. We started meeting regularly, not just about the plan, but about work, life, normal stuff. Turned out we had more in common than I'd realized. We both liked hiking, both hated golf, both thought the family's annual holiday card was performative nonsense. In early March, Cassie texted me. Mom's 60th birthday dinner was set. Some upscale place in Scottsdale. Private room. Family only. She really wanted me there. I told her I'd come. She seemed relieved. Said she knew things had been rough, but she hoped we could all move forward. I didn't tell her what moving forward actually meant. The week before the dinner, I met with my lawyer one last time. Made sure all the paperwork was in order. The eviction notice. The foundation documents. The deed transfer showing the house was now owned by the Brennan Opportunity Fund. Everything was ready. Adam texted me the night before. You good? I'm good, I replied. He sent back a thumbs up. Then, this is going to be legendary. Or a disaster, I said. Why not both? He responded. I laughed. He had a point. I showed up to the birthday dinner 10 minutes early. The restaurant was nice. White tablecloths, candlelight, waiters in vests. The kind of place where the check could easily hit $300 per person. Cassie had reserved a private room in the back. Long table set for 14. Gold balloons tied to Mom's chair. Bottles already chilling. I wore dark slacks and a button-down. The envelope was in my jacket pocket. Cassie arrived next. She gave me a hug. I'm glad you came, she said. Wouldn't miss it, I replied. She looked at me like she was trying to read something. You seem different. Calmer. I am, I said. Good, she said. That's good. The rest of the family trickled in over the next 20 minutes. Kevin and his wife, my Aunt Brenda, Uncle Roger, my cousin Nicole, and Adam. He gave me a nod when he walked in. Sat down a few seats away. My parents arrived last. Mom looked good. Smiling like this was the best night of her life. Dad was in a suit. Rare for him. He looked uncomfortable. They worked the room. When Mom got to me, she hesitated, then gave me a quick hug. Thank you for being here, she said. Of course, I replied. Dad just nodded at me. His face said enough. Dinner started. Appetizers came out. Food arrived. Conversation stayed light. I stayed quiet mostly, watching. Halfway through the main course, Uncle Roger clinked his glass time for a toast. Everyone raised their glasses. Roger went first, talked about how Mom was the glue that held the family together, how lucky they all were to have her standard birthday speech stuff. A few other people went, all saying variations of the same thing. Mom was wonderful. Mom was selfless. Mom was the heart of the family. Then it got to me. Everyone looked, waiting. I stood up, glass in hand. Mom, I started, you've definitely been a presence in my life. A few uncomfortable chuckles. I remember a lot of moments growing up. Some good, some less good. But they all shaped who I am today. So in that sense, I guess I should thank you. More silence. This past year has been interesting, I continued. I've learned a lot about myself, about what I value, about what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not. I paused. Let that sit. And I've realized something important. Sometimes the best gift you can give someone isn't what they want. It's what they need. Mom's smile was starting to look strained. Dad's jaw was tight. So tonight I want to give you something, I said. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out an envelope. Set it on the table in front of Mom. What's this? She asked, her voice careful. Open it, I said. She hesitated, then picked it up. Pulled out the papers inside. Started reading. Her face went white. I kept talking. As some of you know, Mom and Dad have been having some financial difficulties. Their house was in pre-foreclosure. They needed to sell quickly. I could see Dad's face going red. Mom's hands started shaking. And they did sell, I continued. About 6 weeks ago. To an LLC. Quick close. All cash. Below market value because they were desperate. Nobody was talking now. Everyone waiting for the punchline they could feel coming. What they didn't know, I said, my voice calm, is that I bought it. I was the LLC. I bought their house from the bank for $440,000, saved them from foreclosure. Mom gasped. And I've spent the last 6 weeks converting it into something useful. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, set it on the table in front of Mom with a soft tap. It's now owned by the Brennan Opportunity Fund, I said. A foundation I created to support entrepreneurs who've been underestimated, people who took unconventional paths, people who got called failures and were told they'd never amount to anything. I turned to look at Dad. He was standing now, face purple with rage. The house where I grew up being called a parasite and a failure, I said, my voice dead calm, is now going to help other people who've been called the same things. It's going to be an incubator. Everything I didn't have when I needed it most. You can't do this, Dad said. His voice was shaking with fury. You can't just take our house. I didn't take it, I said. I bought it. After you defaulted on payments because you invested your retirement in a cryptocurrency scam. We were going to catch up on payments, Mom said. Her voice was small. You needed $140,000, I said. That's how much you were behind. Plus penalties. Plus interest. You didn't have time. You had maybe 2 months before foreclosure proceedings started. So I did you a favor. Saved you the embarrassment. This is unbelievable, Kevin said, his voice dripping with that fake moral outrage. You're actually proud of this. Kicking your own parents out. I looked at him. The golden child who'd never struggled a day in his life, who'd had every opportunity handed to him on a silver platter. Yeah, Kevin, I said. I am. The room went nuts. Dad was yelling. Mom was crying. Kevin and my aunt were talking over each other. Cassie looked like she wanted to disappear. The only person not reacting was Adam. He just sat there with a smile, like he was watching the season finale of his favorite show. I raised my voice to cut through the noise. You have 2 weeks to vacate. I've already arranged for a moving company to help. I'll cover the costs. And I found you a rental property that's affordable on your actual income. Not the income you pretended to have, your actual income. You're kicking us out, Mom said. I'm helping you move into something you can actually afford, I corrected. Something sustainable. That's more than you did for me. Oh, and one more thing, I said, pulling out my phone. I had the movers scheduled for the 14th, but then I realized that's the day after your book club meeting, Mom. So I moved it to the 15th. Wouldn't want you to miss discussing whatever self-help book you're reading this month. Dead silence. Adam actually snorted. Dad lunged toward me, but Paul grabbed his arm. You're done here, Dad said through gritted teeth. You're not part of this family anymore. I picked up my glass, took a final sip, set it down carefully. I haven't been part of this family for a long time, I said. I looked around the table one last time. The foundation opens in 2 weeks, I said. First batch of entrepreneurs moves in March 15th. Same day you move out. Felt like good symmetry. Then I looked at Cassie. I'm sorry it had to be like this, but I'm not sorry for doing it. She didn't say anything, just stared at the table. I could see tears on her cheeks. I turned to Adam. Let's go. He stood up without hesitation, grabbed his jacket. We walked out together while the room exploded behind us. We ended up at the same diner where we'd met the first time. Adam ordered us both coffee. We sat in silence for a few minutes, just sitting with it. That was intense, Adam finally said. That's one word for it, I replied. He laughed, took a long sip of his coffee. I thought your dad was going to swing at you, like actually throw a punch. He wanted to, I said. Paul's got good reflexes, though. Adam took another sip. So what happens now? Now, I said. I move forward, I've already got 6 applicants lined up. Smart people. Talented people. He nodded slowly. That's really cool, man. Thanks. We sat for a while longer, just processing. My phone buzzed. Multiple texts coming in rapid fire. I glanced at them. Cassie, that was cruel. You didn't have to do it like that. Not at her birthday. Paul, hey man, I get why you did it. But Cassie's really upset. Can you call her when you get a chance? Mom, how could you do this to your own mother? On her birthday, you're heartless. Dad, you're dead to me. Don't ever contact us again. Kevin, congratulations. You just proved you're exactly what Dad always said you were. I stared at that last one for a second. Then I laughed. Adam looked over. What? I showed him Kevin's text. He read it and shook his head. Unbelievable, he muttered. You going to respond? Adam asked. Not tonight, I said. Maybe not ever to some of them. He nodded. We ordered another round. The conversation shifted. He told me about a startup idea he'd been toying with, something about automating compliance workflows. I told him about the incubator, said if he ever wanted to pursue it seriously, I could offer him space. He said he'd think about it. Around midnight, we paid the check and headed out. Adam gave me a fist bump in the parking lot. I drove home with the windows down, cold March air rushing in. When I got back to my place, I stood by those floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the lights, the same view as New Year's Eve 3 months ago, but it felt completely different now. My phone buzzed again. I almost ignored it, but then saw it was from Jordan, the kid with the budgeting app I'd been mentoring. Jordan. Dude, just got the acceptance email for the incubator space. This is insane. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means. I smiled. Typed back, you earned it. Don't waste the opportunity. That's what it was about. Not revenge. Not proving a point to people who'd never get it anyway. Just creating opportunities for people who deserved them. Being the person I needed when I was 21 and scared and alone, and being told I'd never amount to anything. The house would open in 2 weeks. 6 entrepreneurs would move in, start building their dreams in the same rooms where mine had almost been destroyed. Coming full circle. The next morning, the foundation director called. Said 3 more applications had come in overnight. I told her to vet them. Send me the top candidates. That evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. Damon Brennan. Yeah. This is David Whitmore. I run a venture capital firm here in Phoenix. I heard about what you're doing with the Brennan Opportunity Fund. A friend of mine knows one of your applicants. I'd love to chat about potential partnership opportunities. Maybe some seed funding for graduates. I leaned back in my seat. Sure, I said. We talked for 10 minutes. He wanted to provide seed funding for incubator graduates, wanted to sponsor some of the programming, had connections to other VCs who might be interested. I took his information. Said I'd follow up next week. After we hung up, I just sat there for a minute and smiled. This was actually happening. Felt proud. I thought about my dad calling me a parasite, about my mom's immediate demand for money when she found out I was successful, about all those years of feeling like I wasn't enough. And I realized something. I'd never needed their validation. I just needed to stop waiting for permission to be proud of what I'd built. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've been in a relationship with my 24-year-old girlfriend for 8 months now. She has a close group of friends from high school and always checks in with them before making decisions. We first met at a work-related event a year ago, hit it off, and after asking her out a few times, she agreed to go out with me. I later discovered the reason she took a while to say yes was that she was waiting for her friend's approval of me. At first, I found it odd that she needed her friend's permission just to go on a date. However, she explained that this was the norm within her group of friends, so I didn't push the subject further. I've since met her friends, and they all seem like good people, so I don't have any concerns. It seems they're just looking out for their friend, which I understand. It appears to work well for my girlfriend. A few weeks back, she mentioned that she had always dreamt of going on a beach trip with her partner, but for various reasons, it never happened. With her birthday approaching, I saw the perfect opportunity to surprise her by planning the beach trip she's always wanted. I had everything arranged, including a relaxing spa session to make the trip extra special. I'm not great at keeping secrets, but I managed to keep this one, eagerly anticipating our trip. This was going to be a significant gesture on my part, aiming to create a memorable experience for us both. However, just days before her birthday, she explained that she preferred to celebrate by partying with her friends, who had been planning this for weeks. She assured me we could celebrate together later. I suggested maybe her friends could reschedule, but she was firm about wanting to spend her birthday with them. She hoped I wouldn't be too upset by this. Despite her reassurance, I couldn't hide my disappointment. I tried to persuade her, but it only led to frustration on her part, insisting on her plans and expecting me to just accept it. Her response left me deeply hurt, leading me to cancel the beach trip altogether. Losing some money on the cancellation was disappointing, but my bigger concern was feeling sidelined in favor of her friends. I get that she has a long history with them, but as her boyfriend, I was really looking forward to celebrating together, especially since she usually spends weekends with her friends anyway. I've always respected the importance of her friendships, never begrudging their time together. All I wanted was for her to prioritize our time together just this once. I realize it might sound selfish, but it's disheartening to feel like a second choice. I decided to cancel the trip without telling her about my plans, as the surprise was already spoiled by her preference to be with her friends over me. Her birthday was yesterday, and she celebrated by partying with her friends, which they all seemed to enjoy. My friends thought the situation was odd, but that didn't matter much to me. I was too upset, trying my best to distract myself from thinking about it. Today she came over, and I tried to act as though nothing had happened. She seemed to be quite happy as well, and was telling me all about how her friends had gotten her drunk and how much fun they'd had without even noticing how hurt I looked. After a while, I felt like I was going to cry, and I didn't want to seem like a baby in front of her, so I excused myself to go to the loo. I was extremely upset about everything that had happened in the past few days and didn't know how to tell her that I was feeling neglected without seeming like I was insecure. Anyway, I washed my face and went back out so that I could try to talk to her about how she was making me feel. But when I came back out, I noticed that my girlfriend looked serious and saw that my phone was clutched in her hand. As soon as she saw me, she approached me and showed me my phone screen, demanding an explanation as to why I canceled her birthday trip to the resort that I had booked. Had sent a text about how they regretted that I had canceled my stay and informed me that my refund was complete. Given the whole situation, it seemed my girlfriend eventually realized something was off. However, rather than showing any remorse, she appeared angry, which baffled me. Keeping my cool, I explained that I had canceled the beach trip right after she expressed her preference to celebrate her birthday with her friends instead of me. Her reaction was explosive. She accused me of ruining her birthday, labeling my actions as immature and criticizing me for not sharing my plans to persuade her to join me. I was perplexed, feeling unjustly blamed since I had intended the trip as a special surprise for her. It was she who had decided against spending her birthday together, opting for her friend's company, and even arguing with me when I sought to discuss it. Her frustration only escalated during our exchange, calling me immature and selfish for wanting to spend her birthday together. This left me in a difficult position, trying to understand how wanting to celebrate her day in a special way had turned into such a contentious issue. And then she accused me of ruining her special day on purpose once again. So I shot right back, saying that had she at least given me a chance to take her out, then she would have known what I had in store for her. So she only has herself to blame in this situation. And calling me immature wasn't going to change what had already happened. I told her that she needed to reevaluate her priorities and stop acting like she and her friends were still in high school. She was already pretty upset, and when I said that, she called me a jerk and left my house in tears. It's been 2 hours since she left, and while initially I had felt better after fighting with her and getting it all off my chest, I actually do feel like a total jerk right now. I can't get the image of her crying out of my head and feel like I did ruin her birthday. Somehow, even though the logical part of my brain says that I'm not responsible for this, it's just that I really, really like this woman. And apart from her sort of juvenile behavior when it comes to her friends, she's pretty much perfect. Let me be clear, I really admire how dedicated she is to her friends. It speaks volumes about her loyalty and trustworthiness. Yet there are times when it feels like she prefers their company over mine, which is quite painful. I believe anyone in my position would feel similarly hurt. In this particular instance, I might have reacted impulsively, possibly causing her distress. I regret my actions and words deeply. Contrary to what I hoped, expressing my frustrations didn't bring me any relief. Now I'm stuck in a whirlwind of confusion. On one hand, I'm inclined to apologize and put this disagreement behind us. However, on the flip side, I can't shake off the feeling that I'm not the one at fault here. She consistently prioritizes her friends over me. Understanding that she has a longer history with them doesn't make the situation any less painful for me. I'm at a crossroads, unsure of how to proceed. The urgency is mounting. I'm worried that if I don't act quickly, I might lose her for good. I don't want to risk that. But I don't want to apologize either, to be honest. Which is why I'm here to ask if AITA for canceling the beach trip I planned for my girlfriend's birthday after she told me that she wanted to spend the day with her friends instead. Update 1. 1 day has passed since our fight, and this is probably the longest that we've gone without speaking to each other. It feels weird as hell, but I'm not going to apologize to her first if that's what she's expecting. I thought about this situation real hard, and I just cannot understand how exactly I am in the wrong here. I don't think I am, so I'm not going to apologize either. And I'm guessing my girlfriend has already told her friends about this incident because a few minutes ago I checked my social media and realized that some of them had blocked me. So get this. While some of her friends kept quiet, others went full-on drama mode, spamming cryptic quotes and snaps with my girl, painting her as some kind of tragic hero who deserved way better. Seriously? They were hyping her up, acting like she was caught in some epic tragedy, not just facing the fallout of her own choices. And the kicker? These same friends, who were all smiles and sweetness to my face, flipped the script and are now on a mission to paint me as the villain. Like, come on, they know the real story. If they were truly her ride or dies, they'd set her straight instead of fanning the flames. It's just low, really. And you know what? I'm starting to think they're just salty about her being in a stable relationship. Let's do some math. She's got 7 friends, and none of them have managed to keep a guy around for more than a hot minute. Not throwing shade, but it did make me wonder why they're all serial short-termers. Me? I'm not one to bail at the first sign of trouble. I'm all in when it comes to relationships, giving it everything I've got before even thinking about calling it quits. So to me, things like these are really strange and don't really make sense to me. My girlfriend and I have had small fights and disagreements before, but we've always managed to fix it within a few hours, and I don't think she's ever complained to her friends about it. I'm guessing it's because her friends with only advised her to break up at the slightest inconvenience. I don't want to break up with my girlfriend and do want to talk things out with her. But if she decides to take her friend's advice and break up with me, then well, that's her loss. I'll be very hurt. But at least I'll know that I did the right thing and stay true to myself. Update. 3 days ago, I posted the last update when I realized that some of her friends had blocked me and were egging her on to break up with me, in all probability. And today I got to know that I've definitely been right about my suspicions. My girlfriend and I hadn't spoken for 3 days after our fight, and by today, I'd given up hope of getting back with her and was almost sure that we were over. I was really upset and decided to take a day off from work so that I could spend it at home, moping and watching something fun to feel better. But then, a few hours ago, my doorbell rang, and I was a little surprised as I wasn't expecting anyone. But when I opened the door, I found my girlfriend standing out there with a bouquet in a box of my favorite chocolates. I was stunned for a second since I absolutely had no clue how to react to this. As a guy, I've literally never been spoiled in a relationship, and an apology like this seemed huge. I opened the door without a word, lost for what to say. Then, cutting through the silence like a siren, she blurted out an apology for the whole mess and floated the idea of us getting back together. I barely had a moment to process before she launched into her story. After our argument, she'd bolted to a friend's place where they were supposed to meet for brunch. She arrived with our drama fresh on her heels. Spilling the beans to her brunch crew, she set the scene of our fallout and, predictably, they rallied to her defense like an army, insisting she dump me on the spot. They even threw in that they'd never been fans of mine, tossing jabs about my height and looks into the mix. And then, as if straight out of a playbook for stirring drama, one of them pitched the idea of her going on a date with another guy just to twist the knife in further. And that's when the warning bells started going off in her head because she knew that what her friend was suggesting was literally the definition of cheating and emotional manipulation. To her surprise, her other friends agreed with this tactic as well, and even told her that they tried this in the past and it always worked when it came to making the guy apologize. This was the first time that she told her friends about a serious relationship problem, and she was shocked that whatever her friends were suggesting. She told them that she didn't want to do that, but that just made her friends mock her for being too pansy and simple-minded, and even said that her submissive behavior was the reason her boyfriend, felt comfortable doing such mean things to her. I am my girlfriend's first serious adult relationship since the first relationship she had was in high school, which lasted for a year. But they broke up when they went to college and he ended up cheating on her. She didn't date anyone after that because of her trust issues and stuff, and of course, her friends never deemed anyone worthy of dating anyway. So while she did go on a couple of dates and had some flings for fun, it was never really meaningful. She told me that she knew that she wanted to make things work with me, and even though we'd been together for less than a year, she already felt attached to me, and that couldn't be changed. So listening to her friends' advice and watching them post stuff just to piss me off and even laugh about it like it was all some hilarious joke made her realize that they didn't actually have any good relationship advice for her and were actually probably toxic in their own respective relationships as well. She thought along the same lines that I did about how they could never stick it out with the same guy for more than a few months, and came to the conclusion that they were probably not the right people to take relationship advice from. She'd realized her mistake that day itself, and even told her friends towards the end of the day about how she wanted to apologize to me and fix things. But that's when they started telling her that she should just listen to them instead, and said that apologizing would set a bad precedent and would make her appear weak. She tried to argue that she really was in the wrong here and that apologizing for their own mistakes isn't something white people do. But her friends got pissed off when she tried to disagree with them, and after arguing with her for a few minutes, they gave her an ultimatum and said that she could either stay friends with them or go crawling back to me. My girlfriend mentioned that this was the exact phrase that they used, and I was kind of shocked that they'd say something like that since it's kind of harsh. And while my girlfriend was desperate to apologize to me and fix our relationship, She was also extremely afraid of losing her friends. She doesn't really have anyone outside of this circle and would end up completely friendless if she chose me, which is why she took 2 days to come around, as she spent these days doing nothing but sobbing in her room and binge eating ice cream out of sheer frustration. But today, she'd woken up with a clear mind and knew that she'd rather be with me than with her friends. Since these 2 days had made her realize just how toxic and controlling her friends were. They hadn't even bothered to check up on her after they'd met and were only concerned about some irrelevant gossip. They'd heard about some girl from their high school. This made her realize that while she was ready to move on and act like an adult, her friends were still acting like the mean girl clique they'd formed in high school, which was just not okay anymore. I guess I've been right about her friends after all. So it didn't take much time to decide that she wanted to apologize to me and make things work because I'm what she needed to make her life better. After her big speech, I was dumbstruck for a few minutes. But as soon as I realized what she was saying, I hugged her without a word. And we actually ended up crying because of how relieved we were. It's been a while since that happened, and we've decided to spend the next 2 days together to make up for lost time. We're also planning on going on that beach trip that had been canceled next weekend, so I guess it all worked out for the best. Update 3. Hey, I thought the last update would be the final one, but my girlfriend's friends are awful people, so here I am again. 2 days ago, my girlfriend and I got back together, and she shared a selfie of us online with a cute little caption. Her friends saw that and immediately began bombarding her with calls and texts, accusing her of going against the girl code and calling her stupid and weak. They told her that she needed to delete the picture right away or else they cut her off. But my girlfriend didn't care anymore and told them to go right ahead. This seemed to piss them off, and they kicked her out of that group. I felt that that would be the most that they could do, but apparently not. They started posting all sorts of crap about my girlfriend, about how she was a weak-minded woman who had no self-respect. And one of them even posted that she deserved to be cheated on. They basically started the whole hate campaign against her, and even though she blocked them all, people were still sending her everything that was being posted about her and asking about it. Obviously, she's very upset about it. And I hate the fact that there's not much I can do to prevent it from happening. I asked her if she wanted me to get my lawyer involved so that we could put an end to this, but she declined, saying that doing something so extreme would only make matters worse. I'm obviously not going to do anything without making sure she's okay with it first, but it just sucks that she's having to deal with the situation at all. I feel really helpless and equally upset about whatever's happening. Her friends are just horrible women with absolutely no compassion or morals, and I can't even believe that they're doing something like this to someone they were friends with until 2 days ago. This is disgusting. Update 4. Well, my girlfriend got back at her friends and how I'm so proud of her for standing up to them and showing the world what kind of crappy people they really were. Her friends have been posting about her yesterday, and while she was terribly upset, in spite of the fact that she blocked them, she decided that she'd had enough of it today. She told me that she was going to make sure they regret talking crap about her online and expose them for the mean girls that they'd always been. She had a lot of texts from the group that she used to be in where her friends would gossip about other people from their high school and make fun of literally everyone, even the people they would pretend to be friends with outside of their circle. So she took several screenshots of those old chats and decided to post them online, tagging each and every person that her friends had been talking about. She herself had never been part of it because she didn't like gossiping, and most of the people that are her friends would talk about behind their backs were actually pretty nice, so they had no reason to be so mean to them at all. After a while, that post pretty much brought a whole barrage of pure hatred from her high school classmates against her old friends in the comments. She didn't block them for that very reason too, and was glad to see that her friends were struggling to defend themselves in whatever they'd said. Of course, they were pretty pissed off about it as well. They added her to a group call and threatened to ruin her life and stuff, now that she's gone against them. But I called them on their bluff this time and told them that if they even thought about trying to do anything else to mess with me and my girlfriend, then we'd be taking legal action against them. So they better stop. They tried to argue with me, but I wasn't having it and totally told them off about that juvenile. And frankly, idiotic behavior. I told them what I thought of them and how they were. Nothing but a bunch of losers, so-called alpha females who still relied on their parents and boyfriends to pay for them everywhere. I ended by telling them to get a real job and stop harassing my girlfriend for attention. And by then I could hear some of them crying while the others tried to attack my girlfriend by calling her a pick-me. But it didn't matter anymore. I hung up and blocked all of them from my girlfriend's phone. Once again. Now that we're finally done with this crap, my girlfriend and I are back to planning for our vacation, and we're making it bigger and better than whatever I had planned earlier. I think we've earned it. This story is titled, "My sister and her fiancé laughed at me for paying their bills for, so I cut them off and now they need my help. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Edit! Holy crap, this absolutely exploded overnight. RIP my inbox. I'm trying to respond to comments, but there are literally thousands. Thanks for all the awards. Though maybe save your money instead of giving Reddit more? That's kind of the point of this story, lol. Quick note before I start. Names changed for obvious reasons, and throwaway account because my sister's still obsessed with Reddit. Also, this is going to be a long one, so grab your popcorn. Some background about me before I dive into this dumpster fire. I'm 27 male, working as a software developer at a mid-sized tech company in Austin. Not F-ang money. Trust me, I wish. But I do okay for myself. Grew up as the awkward middle child. You know the type. Straight A's, built computers for fun, got picked last in gym class. Meanwhile, my older sister Emma, 29 female, was the stereotypical golden child. Varsity everything. Homecoming queen, the whole package. Our youngest brother Jake, 24 male, somehow managed to fly under the radar during all of this. Lucky kid. So picture this. It's January 2023, and I'm finally hitting my stride career-wise. After grinding through a 6-month coding bootcamp back in 2019, while working help desk tickets during the day, do not recommend, I'd worked my way up from junior dev to just landing a senior position. We're talking about a jump to around $120,000 a year, which honestly still feels surreal for a guy who was making $15 an hour at Best Buy 4 years ago. I mention the money thing because it's important context. See, I grew up watching my parents stress about bills, so I've always been super careful with money. My apartment's nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom in a decent part of town. My car's a 2018 Honda Civic I bought used. Her name's AITA after Ada Lovelace. Yes, I'm that kind of nerd. Most of my cash goes straight into index funds and my 401k, because that's what all the finance subreddits told me to do. Emma, though, man, Emma's a different story. Remember those people from high school who peaked during senior year and never really adjusted to the real world? That's my sister. She was working as a personal trainer at one of those luxury gym chains. You know, the ones with eucalyptus towels and whatever the hell a recovery lounge is, making maybe $45,000 a year if she was lucky. Her fiancé Ryan was supposedly this up-and-coming real estate agent, always talking about his massive deals that were just around the corner. Their Instagram feed looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. Always at the newest restaurants, matching Lululemon outfits, constant weekend trips to trendy Airbnbs. They were renting this ridiculous house in one of Austin's hip neighborhoods. We're talking $4,000 a month for that modern farmhouse look that's everywhere here. But if you knew what they actually made, well, let's just say the math wasn't mathing. Then came the call trademark. It's like 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'm in the middle of a League of Legends match. Yes, I still play, judge away. And Emma's calling. Now, Emma never calls me unless she needs something, so I already knew this wasn't going to be good. She's full on crying, can barely get the words out. Turns out they're 3 months behind on utilities, maxed out 4 credit cards. 4! And their rent check is about to bounce. Ryan's big deals had all fallen through, and his broker was threatening to pull his license if he didn't start closing something soon. Being the certified that I am, I felt bad. Like, genuinely bad. Maybe it was residual guilt from all those times she stuck up for me when kids were being jerks in middle school. Maybe it was because she actually said, "I need your help" for the first time in ever? Or maybe I'm just a sucker. But I offered to help, just until Ryan's next deal closes, she said. Maybe 2 or 3 months tops? She needed $2,000 to catch up on rent and get the utility companies off their backs. That's not nothing, but I had it in savings. And family's family, right? I sent the money that night, even helped her set up a budgeting spreadsheet that she never opened, and suggested some ways to cut back that she ignored completely. But hey, at least I tried to be responsible about it. Here's where I made my first mistake. I let it become a regular thing. Every month, Emma would send a Venmo request, sometimes with a heart emoji, sometimes with a "you're the best brother ever." Once she even sent a photo of their dog with a sign saying, "Thank you, uncle, my name," which I'll admit was pretty cute. But looking back, it was all just manipulation. I kept telling myself it was temporary, that Ryan would start closing deals again. Spoiler, he wouldn't. That Emma would finally stick to a budget. Spoiler, she didn't. That they'd get their shit together, and stopped needing their nerdy little brother to bail them out. Biggest spoiler, nope. Instead, I watched through their social media as my money funded their perfect life. While I was meal prepping chicken and rice, they were posting stories from $200 sushi dinners. While I was putting off buying a new graphics card, Emma was showing off her new Dyson Airwrap. Took me 20 minutes of Googling to figure out what that even was. Apparently, it's a $600 hairdryer. The worst part? I actually defended them when my friends pointed out the red flags. They're just bad with money, I'd say. They need guidance. Families gotta stick together. God, I can't believe how naive I was. But as time went on, she got more, let's say, comfortable with the arrangement. The requests started coming with zero context, just the money amount, and usually some BS emoji combination like, or you're the best brother ever star. One time she even had the audacity to mark it as urgent because they wanted to book a limited time deal on a weekend trip to the hill country. You know? Because that's totally what emergency financial aid is for. Here's what really gets me though. I was actually making sacrifices to help them. Real ones. I had been saving up for a down payment on a house because Austin rent is getting ridiculous, but that fund basically became the Emma and Ryan support fund. I cut my 401k contributions from 15% to 6% just to keep my own emergency fund intact. My gaming PC is still running a GTX 1080 because I kept putting off upgrades. Hell, I even switched to store brand coffee. Fellow developers will understand what a sacrifice that is. Meanwhile, their Instagram feed looked like a freaking lifestyle influencer's highlight reel. Let me paint you a picture of what my $2,000 was actually funding. October 2023. Emma posts about their spontaneous date night at that new rooftop sushi place downtown. Quick Google search shows their tasting menu is $150 per person, not including drinks. They got the sack pairing. I know because she posted all of it on her stories. November 2023. Ryan decides he needs a more professional image for real estate. Suddenly, he's wearing a different Polo logo shirt in every photo. The same week they're too broke to pay their water bill. Make it make sense. December 2023. They throw this massive Christmas party at their house. We're talking catered food, one of those professional light displays outside, custom cocktails, the works. Emma even hired a photographer, for a house party. Meanwhile, I'm eating microwave ramen because it's the end of the month and I just sent them their rent money. January 2024. Emma starts posting about her fitness journey. Again, new Lululemon everything. That stupid hydro rowing machine that cost more than my first car. A fridge full of those overpriced meal prep services. But God forbid they learn to budget or cook for themselves. The crazy part? I actually convinced myself this was okay. I had this whole rationalization worked out. They're just bad with money. They need guidance. Or, at least they're not in debt anymore. Spoiler, they totally still were. Or my personal favorite, they'll pay me back once Ryan's real estate career takes off. My best friend Mark, who works in fintech and has been telling me I'm an idiot since day one, actually sat me down and did the math. In 18 months, I'd given them $36,000. $36,000. That's a decent down payment on a house in some parts of Texas. That's a new car. That's a lot of money to give to people who are posting weekly mani-pedi updates on Instagram. But you want to know the real kicker? You know what finally made me realize how deep this money pit went? I made a spreadsheet, because of course I did, tracking their social media spending based just on what they posted publicly. In the same 18 months I'd given them $36,000, they had spent at least $4,800 on gym memberships. Both had Equinox memberships, if you know, you know. $3,000 plus on Emma's wellness treatments, whatever the hell those are. $2,400 on Ryan's golf club membership. $5,000 plus on restaurants, just the ones they posted about. $3,500 on Emma's Sephora addiction. She had their top-tier reward status. $2,900 on Ryan's work wardrobe. God knows how much on their constant weekend trips. And these are conservative estimates based only on what they publicly posted about. The real numbers were probably way higher. The worst part? Every time I'd try to bring up budgeting or financial planning, they'd get defensive. Emma would pull the, "You don't understand, we have to maintain an image for Ryan's career" card. Or my favorite, "Just because you're okay living like a college student doesn't mean everyone wants to live that way." Yeah, because living within your means is totally the same as being a broke college kid. Looking back, I realized they never saw my help as temporary. They'd built their entire lifestyle around having that extra $2,000 a month. They were counting on their rich tech brother to keep subsidizing their Instagram perfect life indefinitely. You ever have one of those moments where your whole world shifts on its axis? Like, one minute everything's normal, and the next you realize you've been living in some kind of bizarre alternate reality? Yeah, welcome to my mom's 50th birthday party. Mom had wanted a big celebration, so we rented out this cute little event space in South Congress. Nothing too fancy, but nice enough that Emma complained it wasn't Instagram worthy. Should have been my first clue for how the day would go. I'd spent the morning helping set up, making sure the catering was sorted, and testing the AV system for the slideshow I'd put together of old family photos. You know, actual useful stuff. Emma and Ryan showed up an hour late, because of course they did. They rolled up in his leased BMW, another red flag I'd been ignoring. Who leases a 540i when they can barely make rent? Emma was wearing this designer dress that still had the tags tucked in. Found that out later, she was planning to return it. And Ryan was sporting his newest real estate power look, complete with Gucci loafers. I remember thinking they looked like NPCs from a game about wealthy millennials. The party was going fine at first. Mom was happy, Dad was doing his usual, I'm manning the grill even though we have caterers thing, and my brother Jake was entertaining our little cousins with some TikTok dances. Normal family stuff, you know? I was mostly hanging back, nursing my beer, and trying to avoid Ryan's attempts to rope me into his latest investment opportunity. Spoiler, it was crypto. That's when I noticed my Aunt Linda giving me these weird looks across the room. Linda's always been the straight shooter in the family. She's that aunt who'll tell you if your outfit looks bad or if your boyfriend's a loser. No filter, just facts. After dinner, I was helping clean up some plates in the kitchen, because apparently I'm the only one who was raised to help at parties. When Linda cornered me, she had this look on her face like she was about to tell me someone died. Honey, she said, checking over her shoulder to make sure we were alone. We need to talk about Emma and Ryan. I figured she was going to lecture me about enabling their lifestyle or something. I'd gotten pretty good at deflecting those conversations. But what came next hit me like a truck. I was at cousin Sarah's baby shower last week, Linda started, her voice low. Emma and Ryan were there, getting pretty loose on the mimosas. They were talking about you, making jokes. My stomach did this weird flip thing. What kind of jokes? Linda looked physically pained. They were calling you the rich tech nerd who was too busy with his computers to have a real life. Said you were... She paused, clearly debating whether to continue. They said you were such a loser that you had to buy their friendship with the monthly payments. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, but Linda wasn't done. Emma was laughing about how you're so bad with money because you waste it all on them instead of getting a life. And she told everyone the money was just tech bro guilt payments because you make too much for doing nothing all day. The beer in my hand suddenly felt very heavy. Through the kitchen door, I could hear Emma's distinctive laugh. She was probably showing someone her latest Instagram photos. My ears were ringing. That's not all, Linda continued, her hand on my arm. Ryan was bragging about how they've got you wrapped around their finger. Said as long as Emma plays the helpless little sister card, you'll keep paying their bills indefinitely. I must have gone pale because Linda pushed a chair toward me. I sat down hard, my mind racing through every interaction over the past 18 months. Every thank you text. Every grateful hug. Every you're the best brother ever message. It had all been an act. Why are you telling me this? I managed to ask. Linda's face softened. Because you're a good kid who works hard for his money. And because I watched them take thousands of selfies tonight in front of the decorations you paid for, making fun of how you try too hard to make mom happy. Right then, Emma burst into the kitchen, already talking a mile a minute about how Ryan needed my help setting up his new crypto wallet. She stopped short when she saw my face. Everything okay? She asked, her voice dripping with that fake concern I now realized I'd been hearing for months. I looked at her, really looked at her. My sister was wearing a dress that cost more than my monthly student loan payment, holding the latest iPhone I'd convinced myself she needed for work, planning a wedding I was expected to help pay for, all while laughing at what a sucker I was. Yeah, I said, my voice steady. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Not even close. As I watched Emma bounce back to the party, already posting another story about her amazing family celebration, something inside me shifted. The quiet tech nerd who always helped everyone? He was done being the family ATM. I spent the rest of the party watching them through new eyes. Every laugh felt hollow. Every hug felt fake. Every time Ryan mentioned his upcoming deals or Emma talked about their investment strategy, I felt physically ill. When they left that night, early, because they had brunch plans the next day, Emma gave me her usual, love you bro, and Ryan did his fake punch on the arm thing. I smiled and waved goodbye. They had no idea what was coming. Here's the thing about being the tech nerd of the family. We're really good at documentation and planning and being methodical when we need to be. Emma and Ryan thought I was just some pushover who typed on keyboards all day. They were about to learn exactly what a motivated developer can do with a spreadsheet and too much cold brew coffee. The morning after Mom's party, I woke up early and did what I do best. I made a project plan. Remember that spreadsheet I mentioned earlier? Time to turn it into a weapon. I spent the entire Sunday going through 18 months of receipts, bank statements, and Venmo histories. Every single payment, every request, every emergency transfer. All of it meticulously cataloged. But the real goldmine? Social media. See, Emma and Ryan weren't just bad with money. They were compulsively public about it. They tagged every restaurant, every store, every luxury experience. They'd even enabled location sharing on most posts, so I could literally map out their spending sprees. Remember that fancy sushi dinner they had when they were too broke to pay their electric bill? Tagged with date night, luxury life, no regrets. The Gucci loafers Ryan bought instead of paying their car insurance? Posted with gotta invest in yourself 100%. I created a timeline matching their social posts against their desperate requests for money. It was actually kind of impressive how blatant it was. They'd post about booking a spa weekend, then 3 days later Emma would text me about a surprise medical bill. They'd show off their new restoration hardware furniture, then Ryan would call about being short on rent. The audacity was almost admirable. Then I did something that probably sounds petty, but turned out to be crucial. I started screen recording their Instagram stories. You know how those disappear after 24 hours? Well, not if you save them. Every humble brag, every blessed caption, every screenshot of their DoorDash orders, I kept all of it. I even made a folder of screenshots showing timestamps of when they'd post about buying luxury stuff literally hours after I'd sent them money. But here's where my inner nerd really came in handy. I built a simple program to track their posting patterns. Turns out they had a system. They'd usually ask for money on Thursdays or Fridays, right before their weekend plans. They'd wait until the money cleared, then suddenly there'd be a burst of posts about their spontaneous adventures. Like clockwork, every single time. While I was doing all this detective work, they were still living their best fake life, completely oblivious. Emma sent her usual Venmo request that Monday. $2,000 with a rent due caption. I didn't respond. Tuesday morning, another request. Hey bro, did you see my Venmo? Kind of urgent. I left it on red. By Wednesday afternoon, Emma was calling. I let it go to voicemail. She left 3 messages, each one increasingly panicked. The last one was just, William, what the hell? We need that money. Thursday morning, I got the text I'd been waiting for. Are you mad at me or something? Ryan says we can probably get an extension on rent, but we really need your help. Call me? That's when I made my first move. I sent back a single screenshot. Their post from Sunday showing their $500 recovery brunch at some bougie downtown restaurant, time-stamped just hours after they'd left Mom's party. No caption, no comment. Just the receipt they'd proudly shared with their food blogger friends. Emma called immediately. I actually smiled when I saw her name pop up on my phone. Time to put those improv classes I took in college to good use. Hey, Em, sorry I've been busy, I said, making sure to sound distracted. What's up? What's with the screenshot? She demanded. Are you, like, stalking my Instagram or something? Oh, that? Just noticed you guys had a nice brunch right after asking me to cover rent again. Must have been good. $500 is a lot for eggs. The silence on the other end was beautiful. I could practically hear her trying to come up with an explanation. That was different, she finally stammered. Ryan had some clients he needed to impress. It's business expenses. Right, I said, keeping my voice neutral. Just like the Gucci loafers were a business expense, and the spa weekend was for networking? Another long pause. Who's been talking to you? Her voice had that edge it gets when she's losing control of a situation. Does it matter? Look, I'm having some cash flow issues right now. Might need to pause the payments for a while. Cash flow issues? She actually scoffed. You make like $1 billion writing computer stuff. And there it was. The entitled attitude Linda had warned me about. The mask was already slipping. Actually, I make $120,000 before taxes, and I've been sending you $24,000 a year. Want to do that math real quick? This isn't funny, William. We're counting on that money. We have bills to pay. Weird how you need my money so badly when you just dropped $900 on a Dyson Airwrap? Or was that for clients too? Click. She hung up on me. Within an hour, my phone was blowing up. Ryan sent a paragraph about how I was tearing the family apart. Emma switched to guilt trip mode with a photo of their past due utility bill, conveniently cropped to hide the date. Even my mom texted asking if everything was okay, because Emma was very upset. But I stayed quiet, posted nothing, said nothing, just watched as they started to realize their gravy train had hit the brakes. The best revenge plan is like good code. You set it up right, then let it run itself. And boy, was it about to run. That's when Emma deployed her nuclear option. She called our mom crying. Now, you need to understand something about our mom. She's the sweetest person alive, but she's also been enabling Emma's behavior since we were kids. If Emma was upset, it was always someone else's fault. When she maxed out her first credit card at 19, Dad was too strict with money. When she dropped out of college, her professors were against her creative spirit. Now, her terrible money habits were apparently my fault for suddenly abandoning her. Mom called me at work, which she never does. I could hear the tension in her voice immediately. William, your sister is hysterical. She says you're refusing to help with their bills anymore? They might lose their house. First of all, it wasn't their house. It was a rental they could never afford. Second, the only thing they were at risk of losing was their luxury lifestyle. But try explaining that to a mother who's listening to her daughter sob about being homeless. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice level, did Emma happen to mention that I've been giving them $2,000 every month for the past year and a half? Silence. Then, she said you were helping with rent sometimes. Sometimes? Mom, I've given them $36,000. That's more than some people make in a year. And want to know what they did with it? Check Emma's Instagram. I heard her typing. My mom's not super tech savvy, but she knows how to stalk her kids on social media. I waited as she scrolled through Emma's feed. The brunches, the shopping sprees, the weekend trips, all of it meticulously documented with blessed hashtags. Oh, she said quietly. I didn't realize. But Emma wasn't done. When Mom didn't immediately solve her problem, she started calling other family members. Aunt Linda already knew the truth, obviously, but others started getting involved. My cousin Mike texted asking if I was in some kind of trouble because Emma said I was acting erratic with money. Uncle Steve, who's some kind of financial advisor, called to offer his services because he'd heard I was struggling with fiscal responsibility. The stories Emma was spinning got wilder by the day. By the end of the week, half the family thought I was either having a mental breakdown, secretly gambling, or had joined some kind of tech cult that made me turn against my family. My brother Jake, bless his soul, just kept sending me popcorn emojis and asking if he could watch the next time it all kicked off. Then Ryan showed up at my office. I work at one of those typical tech companies in downtown Austin. You know, the kind with the cold brew on tap and beanbag chairs everywhere. I was in the middle of a code review when our receptionist pinged me on Slack. There's someone here insisting on seeing you? Says he's family? I walked into our lobby to find Ryan pacing back and forth, still wearing his realtor uniform, crisp polo, khakis, that fake Rolex he bought from his guy. He was trying to look professional, but I could see the desperation in his eyes. We need to talk, he said, trying to keep his voice down. This has gone too far. I looked at him, then at the security guard who was watching us curiously, then back at him. You came to my workplace for this? You won't answer our calls. Emma's a mess. Our rent is due in 3 days, and our electricity is about to be shut off. Weird, I said, pulling out my phone. I opened Instagram and showed him Emma's post from that morning, a mirror selfie showing off her new Lululemon haul with the caption, "Treat yourself Tuesday." His face went red. That's not what it looks like. She's trying to maintain her image for her fitness clients. Right. And I guess the $300 sushi dinner you posted about last night was for networking? He actually took a step back. Have you been stalking our social media? Stalking? Ryan, you tag the restaurants. You geotag your locations. You literally post the receipts trying to flex on people. I'm not stalking you, I'm just paying attention. That's when he switched tactics. His voice got low, almost threatening. Look, you don't want to make an enemy out of me. I know people, important people. I couldn't help it. I laughed, like actually laughed out loud. Important people? Ryan, I checked your real estate license records. You haven't closed a deal in 8 months. The only important people you know are the bartenders at that overpriced whiskey bar you can't afford. Security was definitely watching us now. Ryan noticed too, because he tried to backpedal. Just think about what you're doing to your sister, to your family. I have thought about it. I've thought about it $36,000 worth. And I'm done. I turned and walked back to the office, leaving him standing there. As the door closed behind me, I heard him call out, "This isn't over." But it was. He just didn't know it yet. After Ryan's little office visit stunt, things escalated faster than a JavaScript framework update. Mom decided we needed to have a family meeting to work things out. Those of you with dysfunctional families know exactly what that means. It's code for, let's all gather so the troublemaker can apologize, and we can go back to pretending everything's fine. Mom scheduled it for Sunday afternoon at their house. Family meetings at my parents' place always followed the same script. Everyone sits in the living room. Mom makes her special occasion coffee, just regular coffee with cinnamon, but don't tell her I said that. And Dad pretends to mediate while actually just wanting to get back to his garage projects. But this time, I came prepared. Remember that documentation I mentioned? The spreadsheets, screenshots, and records? I spent Saturday night putting together what we in tech would call a presentation deck, but was really more like a PowerPoint of receipts. I brought my laptop, an HDMI cable, always be prepared, and enough evidence to make a forensic accountant blush. I arrived early because I needed to set up. Mom looked nervous when she saw me plugging my laptop into their TV, but she just kept stress cleaning the already spotless coffee table. Dad was in his usual armchair, trying to look interested in his phone, but actually playing Candy Crush. My brother Jake showed up next, took one look at my setup and whispered, "This is gonna be good," before claiming the best seat in the house. Emma and Ryan arrived late. Shocking, I know, in his BMW. Emma had clearly been crying. Her makeup was perfect, so these were definitely strategic tears. Ryan was wearing what I'd started thinking of as his serious business outfit. Polo, khakis, and that embarrassing fake Rolex. They stopped short when they saw the TV screen showing my desktop background. Yes, it's still the default Windows one, don't judge me. "What's all this?" Emma demanded, already sounding defensive. "Just a little presentation," I said, opening my files. "Since we're here to talk about money, I figured some visuals might help." Mom tried to intervene. "William, I thought we were just going to talk." "Oh, we're going to talk," I said, clicking to the first slide. "Let's start with a timeline." The TV displayed a neat chart showing every payment I'd made to them over 18 months, aligned with their social media posts from the same periods. Emma's face went pale. Ryan started tugging at his collar. "In the past year and a half," I began, using my best explaining code to non-technical manager's voice, "I've given you $36,000. That's after taxes, by the way. Let's look at how that money was spent." Click. Next slide, a compilation of their Instagram stories showing expensive dinners, shopping sprees, and self-care purchases, each dated within days of my payments. "Here's you guys at that new sushi place downtown," I narrated, pointing to a photo. "This was 3 days after you told me you couldn't pay your electric bill. Nice steak pairing, by the way." That was a business dinner," Ryan sputtered. "For clients." Click. "Here's the receipt you posted, tagged as date night, with about 12 heart emojis. Weird way to label a business dinner." Emma tried to jump in. "You're making us look bad on purpose. Those posts aren't telling the whole story." Click. A spreadsheet appeared, meticulous and color-coded. "You're right, they're not. So I made this. Every payment you asked for, every excuse you gave, and what you actually spent the money on. See these red highlights? Those are the times you claimed it was for utilities or rent, but then posted about buying luxury items instead. This is ridiculous." Ryan stood up, his face red. "You're obsessed. You've been stalking our social media like some kind of..." "Stalking?" I interrupted, clicking to the next slide. "You mean like how you check in everywhere on Instagram? Or how you tag every store you shop at? Or maybe how you literally post your receipts trying to flex on people? That kind of stalking?" The room was dead silent. Jake was grinning like it was Christmas morning. Mom had her hand over her mouth. Dad had actually put down his phone. "But here's the best part," I continued, clicking to a new slide. "While you were spending my money on luxury goods, you were also making fun of me behind my back, calling me the rich tech nerd who had no life, making jokes about how I was buying your friendship. Remember those conversations, Emma? The ones at Cousin Sarah's baby shower?" Emma's face went from pale to red. "Aunt Linda," she whispered. "She told you." "Yeah, she did. Because unlike some people, she actually cares about family beyond what they can buy for her." Ryan tried to salvage the situation. "Look, we made some jokes, okay? We were stressed about money." "Stressed about money?" I clicked to the final slide, a montage of their luxury purchases over the past month, after they claimed they were broke. "Is that why Emma bought a new Dyson Airwrap last week? Or why you bought those Gucci loafers? Or why you're still paying for an Equinox membership?" Mom finally found her voice. "Emma, is this true?" "All of it." Emma burst into tears. Real ones this time. "You don't understand. We had to maintain a certain image. Ryan's real estate career hasn't had a sale in 8 months, I finished for her. Yeah, I checked the public records. Want me to show those too? Ryan stood up so fast he knocked over his coffee. This is bull! You're trying to make us look like criminals. No, I said calmly. I'm showing everyone exactly who you are. You took advantage of my help, mocked me behind my back, and then had the audacity to act like victims when I stopped funding your fake lifestyle. That's when Dad finally spoke up. In his quiet, mechanic's voice that we all knew meant serious business. Ryan, sit down. Emma, stop crying. William, show us everything. For the next hour, I walked them through it all. The payment history, the spending patterns, the social media posts, the lies. By the end, Mom was crying. Dad looked like he aged 10 years, and Jake was slow clapping in the corner. Emma and Ryan tried to leave halfway through, but Dad made them stay. You wanted a family meeting? He said. We're having one. When I finally closed my laptop, the room was silent except for Emma's sniffling. Then Mom looked at them and said something I never thought I'd hear. I'm so disappointed in both of you. That's when I knew everything had changed. It's been 3 months since the family meeting that nuked my sister's fake Instagram lifestyle, and holy hell have things changed. Grab some popcorn, because this aftermath is better than any season finale I've ever watched. Remember how Emma and Ryan were always posting about their luxury lifestyle? Well, their social media went dark immediately after the meeting. Like, completely silent. The constant stream of brunches, shopping hauls, and inspirational quotes just stopped. Emma's last post was literally mid-story about some overpriced juice cleanse, the internet equivalent of a ghost town. But the real changes? Those started happening about a week after the meeting. First, Ryan's BMW mysteriously disappeared from their driveway. Turns out, when you lease a luxury car and miss 3 payments, the repo guys don't care about your personal brand. He's driving a 2010 Honda Civic now. Welcome to my world, buddy. Their fancy rental house was next. Remember that $4,000 a month modern farmhouse monstrosity? Yeah, they got evicted. Not because I stopped paying. They'd actually been pocketing my rent money for months while missing payments. But because their landlord finally got tired of their excuses. The look on Ryan's face when he had to move their restoration hardware furniture into a storage unit was chef's kiss. Speaking of Ryan's real estate career, remember how I mentioned he hadn't closed a deal in 8 months? Well, someone, definitely not me, left a detailed review of his business practices on his broker's Facebook page. Suddenly, all those big deals he was always talking about evaporated. His broker pulled his license last month, citing ethical concerns. Now he's working at his uncle's car dealership in Round Rock. No more luxury real estate expert bio on LinkedIn. Emma tried to maintain her personal trainer / lifestyle influencer thing for about 2 weeks after moving back in with our parents. She'd post these weird, vague motivational quotes about weathering storms and staying authentic. But it's kind of hard to sell a luxury fitness lifestyle when you're filming workout videos in your childhood bedroom. Her Equinox membership got canceled. Shocking, I know. And most of her clients jumped ship when they realized her whole image was fake. The family dynamics have been interesting. Mom went through about a week of trying to fix things before Dad finally sat her down and showed her their credit card statements. Turns out Emma had borrowed Mom's card information for some of those emergency shopping sprees. Now she's doing that quiet, disappointed thing that's somehow worse than anger. She actually made Emma get a real job. She's working as a receptionist at Dad's friend's dental office. No more flexible entrepreneur schedule. Jake, my absolute legend of a little brother, made a drinking game out of counting how many times Emma tries to blame her situation on everyone else during family dinners. Mercury isn't even in retrograde anymore, Emma. Maybe it's just consequences. I almost spit out my drink. The most satisfying part? All that designer stuff they bought trying to maintain their image? Most of it turned out to be fakes or returns they never sent back. Ryan's Rolex collection was all DH Gate specials. Emma's designer bags were mostly high-quality dupes from some sketchy website. Even their furniture was mostly Facebook Marketplace, finds they tried to pass off as new. The facade wasn't just cracking, it was completely fake to begin with. Last week, Emma tried one last time to fix things. She showed up at my apartment, yeah, the same sad little apartment she used to make fun of, with tears in her eyes, and a speech about how she'd learned her lesson. She talked about therapy and personal growth and understanding the value of money now. I listened to her whole speech. Then I showed her something I'd been saving. Screenshots of her messages to our cousins from just 2 weeks ago, still talking trash about me and planning how to get back on my good side so the money would start flowing again. Her face when she realized I could still see the family group chat? Priceless. Emma, I said, I don't need you to act sorry. I need you to actually change. And until that happens, we're done. She left crying. Real tears this time, not the strategic ones she used to use. As for me, life's pretty good. That house down payment fund I mentioned, it's growing again. I upgraded my gaming PC, finally got that 4090, worth every penny. I'm taking actual vacations now. Writing this from a coffee shop in Tokyo, actually. Turns out not bankrolling someone else's fake lifestyle leaves you with a lot of disposable income. Mom still occasionally tries to bridge the gap, but even she admits things are better this way. Dad's actually started asking me for financial advice, which is both weird and kind of awesome. And Jake? He's thinking about learning to code. Apparently watching his big brother destroy 2 lives with PowerPoint inspired him. The best part? I ran into Ryan at HEB last week. He was wearing a polo with the car dealership logo and looking at the clearance items. When he saw me, he literally turned around and walked the other way. Guess that Gucci loafer's on the other foot now, huh? Final update. Since so many people asked, yes, I'm doing much better mentally now that I'm not carrying their financial burden. Therapy and weightlifting help a lot. And before anyone else asks, yes, my company is hiring. And no, I can't refer you. But maybe learn to code? It worked out pretty well for me.